So you and Matt got married. Your wedding was the best wedding.
It was the best one.
Yeah, the best one that had happened.
It wasn't. All the weddings are great.
Well,
I loved your wedding.
Yeah.
My kids still talk about it,
Okay,
and they were so young. Your COVID one.
My COVID one,
Your COVID one where we went and honked for like, I mean, we honked for like 20 minutes straight. My kids were like on cloud nine.
Well,
they were like, we're honking. They were so happy.
A few weeks after that, some parents were...
Eleanor read this for us, but we're going to dare to read it again. Bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry, and he asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know.
Well, how you doing today, Jenna?
I'm doing really good. So excited to be here.
Yes, thank you for coming on our podcast. It's been a little bit in the making, but super excited.
It gave me time to binge every single podcast. Preparation. I hadn't been listening to it because I had this other one I've been listening to for a while, and I was like, okay, I'm never going to finish this one. I need to just listen to the New Life one, so I did.
So which one was your favorite? Which episode?
I feel like I'm picking a favorite person.
Exactly.
You are picking a favorite person.
That's not fair.
All right, what's...
A safe one would be Ann Postaways.
The one that stood out to me was Brian Hagerman's.
Yeah.
I really liked his, and I felt like I walked away from that feeling like I'd listened to a really good sermon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I
you
don't know,
did just
really
kind of start giving a sermon.
It was great. Yeah, I liked this a lot.
A lot of people have told us that is their favorite podcast episode. Yeah. I feel like we need to have him back for a part 2. If our viewership goes down or something, they'll come back.
I don't know if our viewership can go down.
Oh, okay. The 5 people. I don't know. Yes, the 5 people that listen.
That was good, and I enjoyed John's actually. I mean, John is my brother.
Yeah.
But I still feel like since we were step siblings, there's some things about like earlier in childhood that we just haven't covered, or like just hearing I know the story of what happened, but hearing his perspectives on it, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I love John.
Yeah.
So it was fun. I enjoyed that.
Had you heard the story of him running away from school?
Yeah, I had.
And the cop, like, running away from the cop?
Yes, I'd heard that story. I've heard some others. I've heard some, but...
That was so funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So, Jenna, you said that you prepared a lot.
I didn't prepare a lot, but I imagined in my mind how I would answer your questions.
You rehearsed it in your mind.
A little bit.
Do you do that a lot with things?
I do actually, yeah. For conversations I know are coming, I think through what am I gonna say and how best to word it.
Are you just more of a preparing and orderly person in your life?
I think in communication, I am. I studied public relations in college, but I did it because it fit me already. I already was okay, how can I word this the best way? How can I help people understand each other the most clearest way? So
I feel like the only time I rehearse conversations is after the fact. This is what I should have said.
Yeah, I do a lot of that too.
That feels like the less healthy side.
Yeah, probably.
Well, then maybe you go back to the person and you say,
maybe.
I left these things out. Yeah. Could be.
I would like to amend how I said that.
Yeah.
Out of love.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us would have our foot in the mouth a lot.
I think so.
Don't think about what you're going to say.
So, we usually start with, what is your earliest memory?
You usually ask what's your favorite color.
Is that how Joseph is trying to change things?
I prepared. I don't have to talk about it, though. I can say
What is your earliest color?
My favorite color is green because my eyes are green. So that is an early memory because I've always liked green because I have green eyes.
Have your eyes always been the same amount of green, or do they kind of change?
I think they've been pretty much the same.
Okay.
They're just straight up green.
Does it matter what you wear?
I feel like you can tell more, if I wear green or...
Yeah, because right now they look kind of gray-green. Because you're wearing gray.
If I wear a green shirt, people will notice it more. Or brown or reds, maroons sometimes.
Well, green eyes are
they're more on the rare side.
Yeah, they're rare.
I don't know, somehow when I was a kid, I thought that blue was more rare than green. So when I found out actually it's the opposite, I was heck yeah, I'm so special.
You're special.
So I don't know if that's what that says about me, that I'm vain, but...
No.
Didn't you pick the color of this wall?
No, I didn't. I think that might have been Michelle Hagerman.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but I also just am I like being out in nature and always have, and so I like that. The green that I like is that first the leaves in spring, before they really settle into that dark green, when they're still like that kind of vibrant light green. Not chartreuse.
Like the yellowish.
No.
I
No
mean,
yellow.
It's more. It's closer to the yellow side
I know.
than like the dark, like
Yeah.
foresty green.
I don't really like it when it gets too yellowy. Matt and I argue about this because he really likes chartreuse, and I think it's the worst color. That's that like gross yellowy green. So I like it when they have like the green has more of like a lightness to it, but it's still green. I don't know, like a fern green.
Well, what Ninja Turtle would you say you identify most with?
I don't know. I've always liked Leonardo. He's always been my favorite.
Okay.
I like a strong leader type, you know? So.
I think like each Ninja Turtle has been named as someone's favorite so far.
Oh.
Yeah, we've got the
So
whole
it's
crew.
like, I don't know.
Should we get pictures of them on the wall?
We could.
I feel like that's a thing we should do. Maybe the rainbow on
Hey,
the other
look a
wall
little
too.
Michelle would
weird with the
cry.
other half of this room being a counseling room.
How would Leonardo feel about that? Yeah, that's funny.
Did you watch the show growing up?
I did actually watch the
Oh.
show quite a bit, yeah, because my brother is like 3.5 years older than me, so then anything Nate did was like the cool thing to do.
Now, was that like
And it was the right time. It was when it was like happening, you know?
Oh,
We
yeah.
were growing up in the 90s, so.
Was that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle show where they were in costumes, or the animated, like the first
I watched
animated one?
the animated one.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was the movies they were in costumes, and then there was the animated show. But that first animated show was pretty.
I watched the animated show. I watched a lot of that. Yeah.
All right, now we can go back to Joseph's.
For
what
my
was
earliest
your-
memory.
Yeah.
So I actually have a really like good memory, and I remember a lot early on. But I think the thing that would probably stand out, and like I have just a lot of scenes in my head where I've described to my parents, like, hey, I remember this and that was going on, and they're like, wow, that was like 2 years old, you know. But the thing that probably stands out the most is I remember the flood of '93. And I was born at the very end of 1990, so I would have been 2. And we did not live in Iowa at the time. We lived in North Carolina. And we came up to visit my aunt who lived in Iowa, and she went to Stonebrook, which is the church in Ames that used to be New Life's sister church. It's the one that like the Great Commission churches sort of sprouted out of. She went to that church, and so she gave me like a tour of the building and where the water had come in, and she was showing us like it had come down, but like we were standing in a place where you could still see standing water. So it would have been like later in that year, but I still probably would have been
So what was
not
the
quite
flood
3.
of '93?
The Mississippi River flooded, really.
Oh, the Mississippi.
Yeah, it was the Mississippi and the Missouri and like all their tributaries. It was huge,
Wow.
and it went on for months and months. It was a long thing.
Do they know like why it flooded, or was
Well,
it
I was
like
2.
Like now. You didn't
So
ask.
I remember this happening, but I don't know. I have watched documentaries about it before. It's very interesting.
Oh, okay.
I think the big thing about it is that it was just so widespread because it was both the Mississippi and the Missouri. I don't really know what caused it though. Have to look it up.
Probably, depending on who you ask, it was man meddling with nature or God's wrath.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
God's wrath on the Midwest.
Why do you think you remembered that?
I don't know. I think it just stood out. Like I remember a scene where I'm like looking out into kind of a forested area and all the trees are underwater. I mean, they're not underwater, but like the trees are coming up out of the water. And I think
Yeah.
that just stood out to me. Trees shouldn't be coming out of water.
Yeah.
Like,
I
so I think that's probably why it stuck with me.
Yeah, I've seen like meme videos of people like saying what it's like to like spawn into life. Like you're born and you're doing things, and then all of a sudden you like gain consciousness, and you realize, and like how weird that must be to like suddenly notice you're alive. I don't know,
Yeah.
and I think that happens around 2 to 3.
Yeah.
because you like start being able to like build relationships and friendships and interact with people and interact with the world.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's
I don't
interesting.
feel like I had a moment like that, but I do have quite a few memories. So I was born in England because my parents were in the Air Force. And then we lived there until I was about 18 months old, and we moved to Fayetteville. And then we left Fayetteville when I was 4. But I have tons of memories of Fayetteville, in North Carolina. So I don't remember the moment I spawned.
Spawned into
like, but I do kind of tell people like where I gained self-awareness was North Carolina. Like,
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
you
when
start to notice. My other early memory is I had a cup of milk and I left it on the back porch and a palmetto bug died in it. And they're like huge. And so what I remember is this bug, like I went to get my cup of milk and it had a bug in it flipped over, drowned, and like it was the whole opening of the cup was this big bug, and I just remember it being like so put off of milk for like a while.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever like I found a bug in some tuna casserole once, and I still like have a nauseous reaction to tuna casserole, even though I love
was the tuna casserole like outside, or was it like cooked in?
No.
So mine, at least I like left it outside where the bug are going. That's a little more disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a mosquito, but also I was a kid, so like maybe it wasn't even a bug, and I just thought it was a bug.
Probably just
But
like one of the veggies, whatever they're in there usually.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm surprised you still drink milk today.
Well, I got over it. I actually do still drink milk. A lot of adults don't drink milk. I really love milk.
I drink a ton of milk.
Yeah. I don't drink a ton of it, but every now and then I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a glass of milk and it's so good. Yeah.
So, where is Fayetteville in North Carolina?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know. I was so little. Yeah, I was only 4 when we left. I know I have some memories there. I know that it was a little rougher. I know that like while we lived there was still like KKK parades and stuff that happened.
Really?
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a rougher town and a rougher neighborhood, at least when we were there. I don't know, but we were there because that's where the Air Force Base was. But one of the things that happened was we would walk to my daycare, and I remember being at daycare and my mom came to pick us up when we were walking home, and there were these two like crazy dogs that came barking at us and ran at us, and my mom tried to like pepper spray them because she carried pepper spray because it was like a dangerous town, and she tried to pepper spray them and it sprayed my brother in the eyes instead of spraying the dogs. And so then, but what I remember about it is I distinctly remember being like, these dogs are coming to rip my tights. Like I'm wearing these cute tights and these dogs are coming for them, you know. They're gonna rip my tights, and you know. So then we had to like get my brother home, and he had to, you know, shower it off and like pepper spray and stuff.
Goodness,
Yeah.
that would break my heart. I bet your mom felt so bad.
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Honestly, whenever I hear of people having memories from when they're 2, I kind of feel very nervous as a mom because I want to curate all of Gwen's life so that if she has a memory, like it'll be a good one. What if she just, with this pregnancy, I've been really nauseous and like spitting a lot. So now I'm thinking like her first memory is gonna be like, Mom, you spit. You know, and I don't want that. Or Mom, you were in bed all the time. This is stuff that keeps me up.
You're gonna have to let that go.
I'm going to have to. But whenever people are like, I remember something from when I was 2, I was like, ooh, like I've not been doing good.
Yeah, you've been doing fine. I don't remember that much.
So anything before 2, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
You gotta shape up now.
I know. I've never met anyone that remembered something. Well, maybe Jeff Garrett, like from when he was 18 months or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I need to have Gwen only remember me doing awesome things and not just laying in bed and spitting.
Oh, girl. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So, was it very rural in Fayetteville? Like, were you growing up in the mountains or in the woods, or?
No, we were in town. I don't remember a lot of being out in nature, really. I don't think it's mountainous there. I really don't remember that much. I remember there was a bat one time. My dad hit the bat with a racket. Like
With a racket?
Yeah. Yeah, but otherwise I don't really remember a lot.
So, like, was it only you and your brother at that time?
My younger brother was born there.
Okay, so there's 3 of you from, like, your mom.
Yeah, my
Okay.
mom and dad had 3 kids. So, like, yeah, my older brother, Nate, and then me, and then Jake is, like, 2 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we lived there until I was, like, 4 when my parents started getting divorced.
And you're the eldest of...
I'm the middle.
The middle. So Jake is older. And...
Jake is younger, Nate is older.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Nate, me, Jake.
Okay, I see.
And then, then my parents were getting divorced, so then we moved to Ames after that.
Okay. So that's why you guys moved to Ames?
Yeah, so my dad was still in the Air Force. He stayed in the Air Force until I was like a sophomore in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And so he married my stepmom, and then they like moved around in the South, you know, where you can fly planes during the winter. So they lived in Georgia and Mississippi and Arizona, and he lived in Argentina for a couple years, but we like never went down there. We met him in South Carolina and different things like that. And then my mom, like my dad and my mom had both, they'd met at ISU. They went to Ames for college. And so, and that's where my aunt Terry lived and went to Stonebrook and stuff. So we moved to Ames and actually like lived with Terry. Like, well, we got a spot. She lived with us, really. But then it was like my mom and Terry and then me and my brothers. and we attended Stonebrook while we lived in Ames and got connected there, and then stayed there until I was like 9.
So what kinds of things were you interested in as a kid?
Oh, I feel like I am a very like sense of wonder type person. So I'm like interested in everything. Like, I don't know. I've always just been like excited about life, excited about things. But I've always enjoyed being like out in nature. We had a creek in our backyard that like went almost like right through our backyard. So we'd tromp in that creek all the time. And I was always interested. I always enjoyed doing like art. I've always enjoyed writing. Like when I was young, I would write. Even when I was like when I first learned to write, I found poems that I wrote in like 1st and 2nd grade. Like the first thing I'm writing is poetry. So I've always enjoyed that. And I've always enjoyed reading. A lot of those kind of things.
How early do you think you learned how to write?
Well, I probably I was public schooled, so it'd be the standard, like in kindergarten you learn, well, at least back then that's what it was. In kindergarten you learn your letters, then in 1st and 2nd grade is when you really start like writing and putting it all together, and
I'm trying to figure that out with my son Arthur. Like, how soon can this kid read and write? I don't know.
I don't know. It kind of just depends on the kid. I've homeschooled my own kids, and I feel like there is a little bit of a difference in when they are ready and interested. But mostly I just found that out because I had one that wasn't progressing, and I was like asked around, and then people were just like, it's probably too early. So we just kind of are going to try again when they're ready. Yeah.
It's really crazy to me that like literacy today is just taken as a given. But like throughout history, like most people didn't know how to read and write, and they didn't really care.
Yeah. And it didn't matter in their life. They didn't have to care.
Well, apparently nowadays it's not as much as a given. On the news, I think maybe it was CNN, there was a girl who's in college, and she was 1st generation American from like her family was from Mexico, and she couldn't read anything.
Yeah.
But she was in college.
Like just doing college?
Yeah, she was doing college.
How?
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wondered the internet. I have no idea. But they were like, can you read this? And she goes, no. And apparently, like, nowadays, it's harder for people to read because, I don't know, you don't have to. Like, shorthand texts, I remember, like, people are getting dumb. Because of the internet, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we do a lot more, like, podcasts.
We're contributing to the literary crisis.
Before writing, like in books and things, stories and everything was auditory. That was the norm.
I worked for this old guy. He's like 90 now. Anyways, but he said that the books his grandma, the McGuffey readers that he used and his grandma used when they were younger, is now considered like high school, college levels, but it was middle school.
Yeah.
Like back then.
Shoot. Yeah, I don't know.
And Josh like read it and he was like, oh, this is kind of like difficult.
Difficult for Josh or difficult?
Well, like, if you were in 5th grade and you were reading it, it'd be like a 5th grader wouldn't read it now, I guess.
Yeah.
So like they've changed the standards. This is off topic by a lot. But.
Yeah, they've changed standards.
Did you read a lot when you were a kid?
All the time. Yeah, I was always reading. I'm still always reading. I read a lot.
What kind of books did you read?
I've always liked like fantasy books. I've always liked mystery books. So yeah, history. A lot of historical books.
What were like some of your favorite series or books when you were a kid?
When I was like in elementary school, like the Magic Treehouse books were coming out.
Oh.
So I was like, oh my gosh, the next Magic Treehouse book is out. You know, like I mean, like my friends and I were like tracking as they came. So that was really fun because then we were like reading them as they
were released.
How many of those are there?
Oh, there's like 100. I don't know.
Like a lot.
50 at least, maybe, because there's these kind of offshoot versions too. So my kids do read those. They like those.
How often did it's a lady that wrote those, right?
Yeah.
How often? What do you remember? What her name was?
Mary Pope Osborne.
Mary Pope Osborne. How often did she put out like a new Magic Treehouse book?
I don't know. Really kids don't have a sense of time. I have no idea. I just remember being in school and being like, oh, there's a new one in the library, and we were so excited. I read a lot of the like Boxcar Children too. I read a lot of those.
So you loved reading and writing as a kid, and now you're working on a book.
I am. I'm writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
I say that loosely because I haven't worked on it. I haven't worked on it in a while because I've been helping other people write their books. I've been beta reading and that sort of proofreading for friends.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's part of the writing world. I am a writer, and it doesn't mean I have to have this book all done. So just letting the process be what it is, because I'm also like.
Well, how do you feel calling yourself a writer? Like, what does it mean
hard.
to be a writer?
It's hard. I feel like...
do you feel like a fraud? Like,
yes, I do. I said it, and I was like...
yeah, there's like that.
But I know that I am, because I just always have written. Mm-hmm. And, like, even in school, growing up, like, you know, I often had teachers commenting, like, you know, your papers are very good, or, like, I entered writing contests and did well, and, like, things like that, where it's, like, I've always had, like, an interest and a knack for it. And I've always loved... good writing. Like, I love reading good writing. I love, like, C.S. Lewis, he comes up like every podcast, right? So I gotta bring him up. I love his writing. I love the way he uses words. I love the way he, like, takes a concept and puts it into words in this, like, amazing, unique way that I'm like, I'm so glad someone thought of that, because he just nails it, you know? So I've just always loved it. But it does feel weird to call myself a writer, because I'm not, like, published by any means, and I might never be, but I just am, like, I feel like I know I need to, because I enjoy the process. Yeah.
Well, I guess it would depend, like, what do you think, what does it mean to be a writer?
That's where it gets into, like, I think just a person who likes to write. Like, I don't know. A person who writes.
A person who writes
is a writer. I don't know.
Well, I feel like you would know within yourself. Like, I couldn't call myself a writer.
Yeah.
But I feel like you would know.
Can you call
like,
yourself
I have an
a
interest in
podcaster?
this.
No.
I
don't do anything for this podcast.
Yeah. That's called imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have it, but I think even published authors have imposter syndrome. Like, you just feel how that book might have how did that happen? I don't know what the next one will be. Like, the next one won't get published or whatever, you know, it's just hard. But I really believe that, like, we live in such a society where we're having stuff shoved at us all the time. So much information and input. And I feel like passionate about outputting and that people should be outputting. Like, it's okay. Like, I mean, I read a ton of books, I input, I watch TV sometimes. Like, I have, like, a lot that I take in, but just the process of creating and putting something out into the world, I think, is really healthy. And so that's what I really like. Writing is going to be my thing. Like,
well, and that's what Jesus created you for, to create and to steward and take care of things and, you know, produce, because we're made in his image. He's a creator.
J.R.R. Tolkien has a whole thing about subcreation, and he talks about that he believes it honors God so much to create, because we are sub-creators, because God was the creator first. Yeah. And it's a whole thing about that, and I'm like, yes, it's so true.
Well, what's your book about?
Well, I'm so bad at this. I don't have a very good elevator speech yet, because I haven't figured out how to, like, talk about it without, like, spoiling the heck out of it. But essentially, like, it's kind of a medieval adjacent setting, and there's a widow who is, like, she's running as fast as she can. Her husband died 2 years before the book starts. She's, like, raising her daughter alone. She's running this inn that has been, like, his family inn for generations, so she's trying to keep that afloat and all this stuff. And then a friend from her childhood village comes and is like, hey, I need you to... Like, he blackmails her. He's like, you work in this place and you have all this information. I need you to find information about this king of this other kingdom. And then he, like, threatens her, like, I'll kill your daughter or whatever. Like, it's like this or that. And so she has to make a choice between this, like, person she doesn't know personally and her own child. But, like, the ethics of that and how she handles it. And there's all sorts of, like, political intrigue between these little kingdoms and all that stuff.
That's fun.
Yeah. I hope it is.
That sounds hard.
It's so hard. It's like one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I'm having a good time with it. I don't know if it'll ever be, like, publishable. A lot of people don't publish their first book. Yeah. But it's sort of a bucket list item for me to write it, you know, to just have written a book, even if it's not, like, I'm not going to let you guys read it, you know, like, I don't necessarily know that I'll feel like it's worthy of actual publishing, but I have a second idea now. So I'm like, oh yeah.
For like the second book?
A different book.
A different book.
I've got an idea. Because that's where I have the passion to write. I love it. I love the
Mm-hmm.
process of writing. I love the process of revising. But I've never had an idea before. And so
Really?
I feel like this like, it's been such a big thing for me the last few years that I have an idea and I'm working on it and I'm in a group with some other writers and we're talking about it. And
that's exciting.
that's the other podcast I've been listening to as a writing one. I've learned so much. And I feel like it's made me a better reader too, which is fun. So it's been great. I've really enjoyed. It's like if you asked me 5 years ago, like I would not have ever thought this would be a thing, but now it's such a wonderful thing that I enjoy.
It's like a legit part of your life.
It is, yeah. Like I'm checking in with my writing group regularly, and we're dialoguing about it, and we're learning about writing and getting better at it, and just I don't know. It's been really fun. It's like so fun to have something that's mine.
Yeah.
And I think like my kids are young, but they're not as young as they were. We had our kids so close together. And so there were a few years there where I was like, there's nothing I don't have time or energy or I've given up everything that was like my thing in some ways, and I kind of like knew I wanted that, but in some ways that was hard. And I've been really encouraged by how quickly it came back. Like I kind of thought, well, I have to wait till my kids have all left the house and I'm an empty nester before I can enjoy my own things again, like as fully as this, I mean, I had this and that things. It's not like I never did anything fun, but I don't know. So that's been part of the delight in it for me, is I feel like God gave me this thing that's like so doable in small pieces.
Yeah.
Even while I still have kids at home.
Yeah.
And while they're still fairly young. So
yeah,
that was encouraging for me. I appreciate that God did that. It feels like a gift.
Yeah. That's awesome. With writers, one thing I really wonder is, do you like actually enjoy the process of like putting pen to paper and writing words, or is it coming up with the stories, or do you enjoy typing?
I enjoy typing.
Do you do?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I really like typing. I don't know.
Did you do like typing class in like school?
I did do typing class in school. I don't think I'm like particularly good at it. Like I've done tests before and I'm not like how fast can I type? And I'm not impressive. But I feel like I just enjoy it. I love seeing the words come out on paper, and I love.
See, I feel like that's an important component of being a writer.
Yeah, you gotta want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the actual act of it takes a long time.
Yeah, that's like, because, you can come up with ideas. There's lots of creative people, but it's like,
Yeah.
That's where
That's my problem, is I never have an idea. And I'm like, I could just write all day if I had an idea.
Just, write anything. I remember in high school, we had to, so I've done a typing class, but it was when I was younger and it didn't count. But everybody, there were like a lot of kids that could type so well. And I was just like, I sucked at it. Then in high school, we had to come up with a story and write a couple chapters of a story, like a book. And mine was like kind of like Twilight before it came out. I swear, she stole my idea, allegedly.
So what? It was vampires and werewolves?
Yes, I kid you not. Okay, so
you could have been famous.
What am I doing here? So it was like Twilight. I kid you not. Vampires, werewolves, and then like magic people, and one of the characters was a girl, and she lived in a trailer park, and she was poor, but she had magical powers. And her stepmom, it was something. It kind of had some lightning thief components to it, because I was reading those books, but I
like the Percy Jackson.
Yeah, like how his mom married his stepdad so she could hide his smell. It had some of that.
Yeah.
But I got out of actually writing it and typing it myself. I had a girl who really enjoyed typing sit and listen to me.
Pay her
no, I did not pay her.
Oh, you just didn't.
We would just sit in class and she would type my story for me.
That's so fun. It was symbiotic. You both loved it.
I would just like sit and like tell her what I want, and she would just type it out, and it was so perfect for me.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Well, it didn't teach me anything. and then I didn't like update my Google account for my school, and then my story got lost, and then Twilight came out. Very suspicious. But I admire people who actually enjoy the process of writing and typing.
Was the author of Twilight your high school?
No, but I really think teacher? Google was like, this is really good, and sold it to her. Because there weren't any misspellings, because if it was me, there would definitely be misspellings. But this girl was really talented. She could type, and she did it just, why? Why would she do that? I have no idea.
I don't know.
I mean, that used to be like a normal thing.
Like a job.
That people would have like someone they
Like what is that called? Yeah,
Dictating.
dictating. Yeah.
Have you heard of Paradise Lost?
I've heard of it.
The epic poem by Milton that's like basically the fall of Satan and then like everything in the Garden of Eden to like the fall of man. So that's why it's called Paradise Lost, because Satan loses paradise and then he makes humanity lose paradise too. Anyways, by the time he decided to write it, he was entirely blind, and he composed the entire thing in his head and then dictated it to like his niece or something like that.
Wow.
Which is like...
So it's a respectable thing to do, you're saying. Is
yeah.
get somebody else to do
all
it.
the greatest, because like Homer was blind too, right? Homer the blind poet.
Yeah.
So he probably dictated. Well, he probably didn't even dictate. He just said it.
He
and
just
people
told
listened.
the stories and they were listening to it. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I'm
I mean,
not blind. I was just
missing the
lazy.
blind
Yeah.
part, but
But I really do think that that's a really important component of being enjoying that
It
process, because
Yeah.
I feel like you have your new idea and your ideas will come,
Yeah.
as you put more things on paper.
That's what I struggle with that a little. My favorite part of writing anything is revising it.
Mm-hmm.
So getting something new and fresh on paper is hard for me. I feel a lot of this is like so overwhelming. I'm just gonna play a game on my phone instead. Or I'm gonna just go read a book someone else wrote. It's way easier. But I like revising, and so I've had a chance to do that a lot too. Like there's been some things that Matt will write something like when he was in grad school, or like he had a blog for a little while for his business Atlas Psychiatry. Mm-hmm. So I have done a lot of that where I take his work and just make it way better. He's a really good writer, but he tends to be cyclical, and I'm so good at taking it, making it concise, and I enjoy that. And he allows me to. He's here, I trust you with what I've written.
That's amazing.
So it's a good little partnership there. I predict Matt will write a book someday.
Mm-hmm.
This will be nonfiction.
You can write a book together.
I think we could. I don't really know though. I don't know. He's got all the good ideas if it was nonfiction. Mm-hmm. He's got stuff he could say. So I think someday he probably will, and then I'll fix it all and make it polished and nice.
Oh, and then your pictures will be in that little...
Yeah, we can have a little
part there.
Yeah, we'd look so good. It'll be great. We'll see.
You know, how authors always have their biography at the end that says so-and-so lives with their wife and 6 kids in Northern Canada, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
You can have one for each of you, and it's Jenna lives with her husband and 4 kids in Cedar Rapids, and then Matt lives with his wife.
Would they be the same, or would I make them really different?
You would say all the same things, but in a really different way.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's funny.
That reminds me, when Josh was applying for colleges, they asked what are you doing for DEI? And he said he was gonna write
DUI?
DE. Is it DEI? No, it's DEI. And
DUI is a different thing.
Yeah, it's driving while you're intoxicated. Anyways, he said he was gonna write a paper saying I live with this black woman and her daughter, and I pay for their lives. Which that gives you the same vibes as yeah. Just leave the part out where you're married to the black woman and the child is yours.
Yeah, that's funny.
I'd like to go back to our normal of, childhood. So, you moved to Ames when you were 9.
I was, So, we were going to Stonebrook, which is the sister church of New Life back when New Life was still under the Great Commission churches.
Yeah.
And so they had a singles conference, and that's where my mom met Pete, my stepdad. Mm-hmm. And so they went to this conference and met each other and began dating. Mm-hmm. And so they would have met when I was 8 and dated, and then they got married the day before I turned 9. Mm. And then we moved to from Ames to Cedar Rapids, and started going to New Life, and grew up on the west side of Cedar Rapids. And
were you still going to public school at this time?
I went to public school all the way through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you what was life like then? What was that, getting a new parent?
Yeah, that was
all those changes.
It was a weird transition for me. I was 9, so I was half grown up. Mm-hmm. And so I think in some ways it was really good to have a dad in the house. Yeah. But in some ways for me I was very confused. Who is my dad? Yeah. Is my dad my dad? Is Pete my dad? How do I emotionally relate to my father figures. And I think that was where I struggled with, in the end, what kind of happened is I struggled a little bit to connect to either of them, because I was very like, I related to Michelle Hagerman's, we've talked about this before, but you're kind of in the middle and you're like, I want to make all my parents feel loved. And I'm like, well, if I love Pete too much, my dad might have hurt feelings. If I love my dad too much, Pete might have hurt feelings, or my mom might have hurt feelings. Like, and so I just sort of, I like struggled with that somewhat, like being in the middle. And then that was also difficult for me at that time that we moved. We started coming to New Life, and like everyone at New Life was homeschooled, but I was public schooled, and I like really enjoyed school, and I thrived in the school environment in a lot of ways. But so then at school, I would feel like, oh, she's the goody Christian girl, and then I come to church and I felt like, oh, I'm the bad kid. It was hard. Like I felt like
trashy public school.
Yes, and I think there was like probably some legitimate like, well, we don't know this girl. Like I pretty quickly like made friends with like Jessica and Joelle, and like I think there were like the other kids that were there at the time. There were some families there that are no longer around, but like I think there was some hesitancy, which would be natural for a parent to be like who is this girl that my kids don't know, and she's public schooled, and they just didn't know me yet. But like I legitimately, growing up, I feel like I've told them this, but I don't know if I have, but like I thought Kurt and Brenda did not like me until I was like 19.
Oh no!
Like I really. So I hope that they know that. I do know now.
Yeah, you can
that
tell.
That was actually like the very first Renew ministry I ever did was with Sherry, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that I thought like my pastor's family hated me. Like I don't think they thought they hated me, but I think they thought I was like, they were like scared I was gonna like corrupt their kids or be a bad person. Well, like, which they never said that. They didn't. I don't think they thought that at all. It was lie based. But so I grew up with that like weirdness of like. At school, I'm like super goody, and like everyone knows I'm a Christian and like that sort of thing. And then at church, I'm like, I think everything's fine, but I am believing like that I have to like prove that I'm like, no, I really love Jesus. I'm really a good girl. Like, I really am, you know. So that was a weird dynamic too.
That's interesting. Do you think that came from just the fact that you were going to public school? Like, I can't imagine you were doing anything that, you know.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I was a goody.
That would make you feel like you're, you know, not good enough for the Christians.
I think it really was just that like everyone else was homeschooled, and there was like a lot of promoting of it, and like sermons about like, you know, like a lot of sermons with like scary numbers about like, you know, people in public school and like turning away from the faith and things like that. And I like had many conversations with Kurt like later on to be like, hey, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Like I'm a public schooler and those things aren't true about me. And he's like, no, I agree they aren't true about you. But like I think he was talking about the greater picture in some ways. And so I feel like that was like difficult for me to process as a young person. Yeah. And then but I feel like I felt outside of that like lie, I felt very like welcome and accepted, and I feel like I made really good friends with the other girls that were in our church, and I felt like there were tons of us. I felt very supported and very like my young faith was bolstered by my friends. Oh, good. Like I feel like we spent. You know, like we'd have sleepovers and we'd talk about boys for a little bit, but then we talk about what are you reading in your Bible? You know, it was like
you guys couple those.
Yeah, we would talk about like, okay, like are you having your devotions every day and like trying to be accountable to each other. So I feel like that did help me. Like having, that growth.
So when would you say that you like accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior?
I don't remember like a specific, like I don't even know if this is a true or a false memory. But what I think I remember is in Fayetteville being like 4, and I remember hearing my mom go through the sinner's prayer with my brother in the next room, and I stood at I had a little dresser that I loved that had a mirror, and I stood on my step stool and looked in the mirror, and when my mom like said, okay, say this, then I said it, you know, like she was talking to my brother, but I was like doing it too.
It's like secondhand salvation.
Yeah, right? So I don't know if that's like, but I kind of think just more recently I've like talked through this and like looked back on that time, and I kind of wonder if I legitimately got saved, because that's the same time that my biological dad was kind of stepping out of my daily life. And I think like my dad was leaving and God stepped in as my father at the same time, which I am just so grateful for. And I think has caused me to have a much less painful life than I would have if I had been not like saved very young.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's some definite gaps left behind when there's not a dad in your home for those pivotal years, you know, formative years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like even if you have two dads, you know, I don't know, if they're not, because they're humans, you like still need God the Father.
Yeah, even if you have like one perfect dad.
Yeah,
Like,
even especially if one of your dads or your biological dad is gone.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. So it was like, so I think I legitimately got saved at like 4 or 5. And I don't remember exactly, but I know that when we lived in Ames, I remember when my little brother prayed the prayer, and I went to my Sunday school teacher at the time, who I consider my first mentor in the faith, Patty Hibbing, and her husband, Bob, was one of the pastors in the Stonebrook Church, and she was my Sunday school teacher, and I like went to her and was like, my brother got saved on the way to church, like, and I was so happy. And so I think by then I was legitimately saved, and we left Ames when that would have been at least by 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had like I know that some people when they're saved young, they have kind of a moment later where they're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't really saved, or I don't really know, but now I know I am. And I just never really struggled with that. I've always felt like I'm a Christian, and I just have been since I was young. And
did you ever struggle with like the Bible talks about us being like a new creation? Did you ever like experience a sense of like, well, I don't know what the old me is like because I've always just been the new.
I have thought that before, yeah. I think I feel like everyone's testimony is different, and I have gone through periods where I felt like almost resentful of that, like, well, God, it doesn't feel like I have this amazing testimony to tell. But then I've had people tell me, like, I remember talking through that with someone and telling them that, like, I feel like my testimony is boring, like, because it's not. And they were like, hey, for someone who didn't grow up in the church, hearing that that's possible for my children is wildly encouraging, and it's worth hearing, you know? And then now I just feel like I have a better perspective and can see how there's very much, like, the testimony isn't just the salvation, it's the story as you go through your life. So I don't struggle with that as much.
Like, you're still living a testimony.
Yeah, right. But I did have kind of that moment of like, if I had like if it was more clear what I was saved from, you know, I'd have more of a story or whatever. But then I think about what I would have had to have been saved from. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that God saved me early and protected me. I think I would have been looking for love in all the wrong places, you know, because I already know, even with the church community I had, even with my dad and Pete in my life, even with like just God and a lot of support, like I know that I like had some gaps, like some things that I would like miss out on because I didn't have like a close dad connection, and like I was always like striving to like have the approval of like my male teachers. It's like I was looking for a dad figure everywhere, and I can see some ways where that was like, okay, I'm just like desperately looking for something to be filled here, you know, and like not in an unhealthy way, in like a perfectly fine way, but just like so then like if I had made like one of my male teachers upset about something, like if I forgot my homework or something, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're not gonna be proud of me now, they're not gonna like approve of me now, like this is way more devastating than it should be. You know, and then usually it's just like, oh, you forgot your homework once, like it's not a big deal, but like to me I'm like, oh, I failed them.
How do you feel like you gained that self awareness to recognize like, oh, like I'm looking for dad figures everywhere and it's because of all this stuff in my past?
I would say probably through like I did a lot of talking it through with Jessica Gross when she was Jessica Jurgensmeyer, kind of through the high school years. So like my dad and my stepmom had an affair, and I didn't know that when I was like 4, you know, but I kind of figured it out. And so then I kind of had a moment in like late middle school and then into early high school where I was like processing that and the frustration and the anger. So I spent a lot of time talking it through with Jessica, like specifically like how I felt. And I talked with my parents some too, but how I felt and like what was going on. And looking back, I kind of wish that someone had been like, maybe you should talk to a counselor, like, or like I don't know, but the divorce had been so long before, like I don't know if like it had really, it's like, oh, it's been 10 years, like why would you need a counselor now, you know? And so I've kind of encouraged some people that like have gone through divorces or whatever, I've encouraged them like, hey, when your kids hit teenage years and they're processing all those things about adulthood, that might be worth considering, like having a counselor that's not their parents, because there might be things that they need to process.
And it's not their peers.
Yeah, right. And I mean, Jessica did great, but like she only knows so much too. So it was kind of during that time that I started to kind of figure some of those things out. And then I did do some we didn't do Renew Ministry as much back when I was like in a young adult, but now I've been married to Matt, Mr. Renew, for 10 years, for 11 years,
Matt
so
Renew Huether.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, how has it been, like, for healing wise with your heart, seeing your husband be a dad, like, be a father?
I could weep about that.
Yeah.
He's such a good dad.
Well, we do like to make people cry.
Yeah, that's good. He's such a good dad, and it's good. And I had a moment when there was a moment when I was like, oh my gosh, Charlotte's older than I was, and she's into the years where where I didn't have a dad around in those years, and I just had a day where I was seeing Matt interact with her, and I'm just so grateful. So grateful he's there. And I know that our kids are gonna have wounding from us, we're not perfect. Sherry always reminds me that God is the perfect parent, and we still misunderstand him and feel hurt by him, and disagree or have things where God, this hurts, even though he's a perfect parent. So it takes the pressure off of us, we don't have to be perfect, because we can't be anyway. And even if we were, our kids could have some trauma or issues, or misbeliefs or lies. And so I feel I don't remember where I was going with that at all.
It was
yeah. So then just seeing I know that Matt has his flaws, but even that he's just there is so great. And my kids, when they have big emotional things go on, usually they want to talk to him. And I always talk to my mom, always. I was always talking through everything with her, and she was so helpful to talk through things. But I just feel so a part of me has felt well, am I supposed to do that? Or almost hurt feelings, well, why aren't they asking me? Why is dad better? And then I kind of stop myself and go I want this. I want this as much as they want this. I want Matt in their life. I want them to be able to go to their dad. Gosh, I would have loved that, and so it's beautiful.
One, it's gonna be so much easier for them to go to their dad in heaven, their heavenly Father, to have that. I always went to my dad. My dad was always there for me. My dad always helped me. My heavenly Father is that. Right. He's gonna help me.
And they do go to me too sometimes. It's not like they never do. And I've seen more examples. I feel the more Matt has taught them what it's like to come to your parents with your pain or whatever, then they've come to me more too, because I think they just have recognized, this is a safe thing and a good thing, because Matt does such a good job with it.
Yeah.
Are you the more strict parent?
I don't think so. I think Matt and neither of us are chill. Just in life, Matt and I are not chill people. We're intense people. We were fun, and we have a lot of things, but we take things very seriously, Matt. And it's part of what I like about Matt. Is
you're intentional people.
We're intentional people, and we like, I don't know, serious things. And so I feel both of us we talk a lot about our parenting and what we want for our kids, and are intentional with it. And I think there's certain things that I'm way more oh, Matt, we can be chill about that, and things that he's oh, we can be chill about that. It's certain things that we do, that he would be more likely to say, oh, they can do that, it's fine. And then things where I have to be honey, I think they're old enough for this now. It's probably okay now. So I don't know. Neither of us really. We just work together.
You're just serious and want things.
But we're also really fun.
Yeah, you guys are fun. Yeah. I'm actually surprised to hear you say that, we are serious people, because I feel you guys are a lot of fun.
I'm glad you think we're fun. I don't know. It's weird.
In that you take things seriously.
We take things seriously.
Yeah, I feel that's different than being a serious person.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Because I think that is a misperception. I think I've kind of been, seen as, life of the party, But as I feel I get older, I feel I've backed out of that a little bit, especially when I was younger. A lot of people in this church have known me since I was 9 years old. So they've seen all the stages of my life. But I think, yeah, I am fun-loving and jolly and, enjoy things. But I have a very serious side.
Yeah.
I like to take things seriously, I guess what you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like taking fun seriously.
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you planners then? You would plan your fun, and you would I guess take a lot or most of the aspects of life to be serious or even like to be strongly considered.
Yeah. So
to
like
be intentional about.
We're really intentional, and I would say like Matt especially, he would say that like growing up he felt like his brain was kind of disorganized, and he just felt like kind of scattered and stuff. And then he had to like when he went to nursing school, they try and weed you out, and so he's like he had to get organized or he would be like he wouldn't finish nursing school, you know. And so he's taken that into his adulthood very well. So I feel like Matt like recognized how to work with himself, and so he's more than me. Like I thought I was until I like married this guy. So I realized that I'm a little more like a perfect balance of both. But really I like so if we're going on vacation, for example, like we will plan a significant amount, but then we purposely are like these 4 hours are whatever we want to do for those 4 hours. Like we plan to just go with it for those, that chunk of time. But
so you plan your fun.
But there's structures outside of that. And then, we want to get there and see what the fun thing is. And then be like, well, we're going to do that thing. Or what are we in the mood for? Are we tired? Are we, I don't know. So we do both.
Yeah. I feel like if you don't plan your fun, sometimes you don't end up having fun.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yep. But Matt is like very intentional about our family structure. Like, and the what we do with like, he's got all these like, okay, on, one night a week we do renew together, and like what does that look like, and what's the pattern, and like we have for years we've had like what we call it our garden, but it's how we're growing. And then we talk about like, well, we went through Kurt's Visionary Faith book, and Matt like loves that book. It's like his favorite book. And we go through like what are our roles, goals, and habits, and he does this every year at the beginning of the year, and I do it like most years. And sometimes I'm like, it hasn't changed that much, so I'm not going to worry about it. But we talk about like, okay, what are our goals for ourselves right now in the area of motherhood, in the area of being a wife, in the area of being a sister in Christ in the church, and like what we kind of like go through those things and talk through how are we growing in these areas, and like what do we want to work on, what do we want to pray about, and then we pray for it like regularly.
Oh, okay.
We pray for each other's goals, and and now we have gardens for our kids too. Oh. So we go through, what do we think this kid needs to be working on right now? What do we think they need to be learning? What area are they showing a lot of like potential in that we could foster? Foster. And so we do that too. But that's all Matt. Like I don't know. I'm like pretty organized when it comes to like to-do lists and things, but I've realized I'm much more spontaneous than I ever thought I was.
Well, I feel like child rearing is so important.
It is.
Like, you do have to be intentional. You do have to plan, because then you just fall into habits and fall into doing things that you didn't think you would be doing, or things that you just kind of wake up and you're like, well, how is it that we're watching TV every morning now? That's not what I wanted.
How did that happen? Yeah.
Whatever, like something like that.
Yeah.
So child rearing is something I definitely think about a lot, but I didn't have that kind of, the garden. Like, I know I have 5 things I want Gwen to do, or 5 characteristics I want her to have, and I pray for those. But then it's like, okay, well, what else do you do? Like, what's the next step?
So ours would be like once a month we go through where the kid's at. It's like those Tuesday nights where we do like renew on each other. For now it's a rhythm where it's like it's my turn to do renew, and then we talk about our garden, and then we do renew on him, and then we talk about his garden, and it's like a monthly cycle.
Is that enjoyable, or does that feel like work?
Depends on the day. It does. It depends on the week. There's certainly weeks that we skip.
Yeah, or like you'd rather watch a show or something.
Yeah, well, yeah, like, or like we get home from life group really late that night, and we're like, we're just not doing it. Or like, I'm so sick, can I please not do it? Like, I don't feel good. Physically, I don't want to feel bad emotionally.
Yeah.
But then you feel good at the end, I'm like, but not tonight. So we do skip when we need to. It's flexible.
Yeah. With you being public schooled, did you do any sports?
I didn't do very many. I did some basketball kind of in the middle school years, and then I realized I should stick to what I know. And so I've always been a fine arts kid.
Okay.
I was in choir, I was in band, and I was in theater. So I did that.
What play did you do that was your favorite? Or
my favorite? So I started out the gate good, and then kind of didn't ever. But my very first musical was in 6th grade. It was Annie Jr. and I was Annie. Wow. So I was the lead. Yeah, and I was never the lead again. Yeah.
Why'd you get picked as Annie for your debut role?
Because I'm awesome.
I'm not gonna argue with that. I just wondered.
I don't know. I think Annie has a lot of charisma, and I think I had that charisma.
So how old were you then?
6th grade. So like, I don't know, 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Like that.
Maybe 11. But my favorite one, the one that was probably the most special, was my senior year of high school. We did, and I was in them in college too, so I enjoyed some of those. There were a couple, okay, I'll tell you about 3. So Annie was probably like I was like the star, so that was kind of fun, but I was like so young. And then my senior year of high school, we did Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is like, I remember listening to that in Fayetteville. Like, it's like one of my earliest musical memories was that musical, and I went and saw it when I was like 3 or 4, like very young. I saw it. Like, I remember like the camels, and like I have visuals of it in my mind. So that one's always been very special to me, and they did it my senior year, and I was like so badly wanted the lead, and I didn't get it, and I was kind of heartbroken, but I like went to my choir teacher anyway, like in tears, and was just like, hey, I'm sure that was really hard. Thank you for letting me audition. And he was like, thanks for making it hard. And I was like, okay, well, I got a little bit there, but like, but I've always been a good singer, but I've never been like the best one. There's always someone. And then, so the gal that got it deserved it. And she was like, she ended up not having a lot of fun because she was kind of the narrator of the show. And so she wasn't hanging out with everybody. And then everybody else was like, the brothers and their wives. And so we kind of were this big clump and got to do all this choreography and all this stuff. And so she ended up not having nearly as much fun. And so I was like, well, you get to be the star of the show, but I got to have a really good time. And one of my best guy friends in school was my friend Jackson, and he and I became friends like in middle school because he was one of the neighbors. He was like the neighbor of my like best friend at the time. And then she ended up not doing anything like really like, she wasn't in a lot of activities in high school, so we just didn't hang out together. But Jackson and I continued to hang out, and he like told me when we were graduating 8th grade middle school, he was like, in high school, I'll do a play with you. And I was like, sure, whatever, because he was not like a theater guy. And Jefferson does 5 plays a year for 4 years, so 20 plays. And I don't know, but he showed up at the 20th play. He showed up at auditions, and he auditioned for the musical because of the promise he had made in 8th grade.
Wow.
So that was really special to me. I was like, what? And it was like the end of our senior year.
Yeah.
And then he ended up being like my dance partner. So it was just really fun, like, because he was a good friend. And like, it was very like, I just was like, wow, I can't believe you remembered and did that. And he like wasn't in choir. So I was like, you're singing even? Like, he sang, and it was just really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was he good?
Probably not. I mean, he was just he was like in the chorus, but he was good enough, and he did the dancing and stuff. So that was special to me. And then like my brother was in the show, Ashley was in the show, and then Matt Reinert was in that show too.
Wow.
And I don't think he sang, he had every non-speaking part. Or non-singing part.
Yeah.
He had only speaking parts, non-singing. But that was special too, because Matt Reinert and I graduated together. And like became friends during high school. Kind of had some rocky years. It was like, well, I have to love him because he's in the youth group with me, and he's a brother in Christ. But then we ended up really like bonding over our literature class, actually talking about books, and like we used to correct each other's papers, and like share, like we would both be writing poetry and share our poems with each other and critique them and stuff. So so then he was in that play too. So it was just a very special experience. I talked about that for a long time.
So what was the lead female role in Joseph and the Amazing?
It's the narrator.
The narrator?
Yeah.
And
so
she's
in
songs?
like every song. Yeah, she has them.
She sings.
She's narrating like every song. That show has no spoken lines. I think it's every line is sung. So
I've seen it. I have seen it. I don't remember it apparently I remember like one part of it, but I don't remember it very well. I remember like all the brothers dancing. I think maybe in Egypt.
Oh, they probably did that. They danced in Canaan. They danced in Egypt. The brothers danced the whole time. Yeah. So it's a big role, and so it's a good one. But I ended
like
up
the
having
Lord
such
gave
a
you,
good time. He gave me
part.
what would bless me more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it ended up being a really fond experience.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And then in college, my favorite one, I was in a show called Songs for a New World, and that one was very vocally taxing. So it was one that like, I don't know if the audience would have understood, but I was so proud of myself for that show, because I feel like, and Carrie Kearney was in that one with me back when she was Carrie Schaefer. So that was fun too, to be in a show with Carrie, because we both sang, but in college we got to sing together.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't go to school together, before that. And so in college we were in a jazz choir together and in choir together, and then we were in that show together and got to sing. And that was really
So do you miss like theater acting now
an
adult?
Yeah, I love that.
Would you want to do the theater Cedar Rapids?
Yeah, I might. I just think the time commitment is unrealistic.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
You can't write a book, be a mom,
and
do
yeah,
plays.
all my hobbies. I have all my hobbies.
Have you ever thought of writing a play?
I haven't. No. Amy Gross writes plays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she does honestly the Christmas ones are amazing.
She's good.
She does so good.
Yeah. So I haven't thought of doing a play. I feel like I like plays are about the spoken dialogue and the like physical humor, and what I love about writing is the big long exposition. Like the paragraphs of I like the written word. So I don't even listen to a lot of audiobooks, and it's not because I'm a purist and think that like, oh, audiobooks are so like, some people have this bad attitude about it. I'm like, all stories used to be audio. Like, so get off your high horse. But I don't do it because I don't like it as much as seeing the words on the page, you know, and just enjoying that. So I don't know if I would enjoy a play as much as a novel or a nonfiction. I'd really like to write a travelogue. But I also feel like those can be really boring. Like, you don't want to read about someone else's vacation unless there's like a really good reason. And so sometimes I'm like, oh Lord, give me like a really great reason to write.
Like getting abducted or something.
I don't know, yeah, or like.
I feel like you can make
fun.
anything, even if it's like normal and boring. You can tell
You can
it where
make
it's
it
funny.
fun. You can.
Yeah.
You can. And I like reading some of the ones like that. But I feel like sometimes when there's like a specific goal, like I'm going to travel to all these places in this amount of time for this reason, then it's more interesting.
Yeah.
But,
or if you're wildly disorganized and it's terrible, then you can write about that.
Right, yeah.
I
Maybe
feel like
someday.
the new travelogue is like, I don't know, Elena's watched some of these like 20-minute long videos. Like this one was this lady who's, I don't even know why she watches this lady, but she's kind of weird and crazy and she does weird stuff. But she was like, she went to, I want to say it's like Taiwan. I don't think it was Taiwan. She went to some Southeast Asian place and was like, watch me stay up all night in this place. And so she was just like this city has a ton of stuff that's open just all night, like big malls and stuff.
Yeah.
And so she was like going on, there's this like fishing mall place where you go fishing in the mall, and I don't know, it was weird.
She like did all this stuff all night.
Yeah. I feel like that you could do like,
you have to have a hook of some sort. It's not just like, I went on vacation and you didn't. Let's read a book about it.
but
no.
like in like the 1800s, like I feel like travelogues were some of the most popular genre because you got to actually hear about a different part of the country or a different part of the world. Or
so I do have an idea for one, but I don't know if it's realistically ever going to happen. But like when I went to India for our missions trip, I had an opportunity to cook in the kitchen with some of the women from India. And then when I went to, I loved that experience. I just felt like it was probably my favorite moment of the trip, was like just being in there. I didn't know, like they didn't speak English. I didn't speak whatever they were speaking. And like, but we made chapati together, and I learned how to make it, and I didn't completely ruin it. Mine were so not, like theirs were perfectly round, and mine were all these horrible shapes, and they kind of were like, are you a student? You know, like what is, like, I don't know. And so then I was like, I feel what happened is I got a picture of my girls. I don't think they realized how old I was, like, because I used to look like a lot younger than I am. So I like showed them a picture of my daughters. I was like, these are my kids. And they're like, you're a mom? Like I think they thought I was like 13. And so then one of the guys that did speak English came in, and they were asking me like, have you ever made these before? And I was like, never. No, I've never made. And so then they kind of were like, oh, okay. Because I think they just thought I was horrible at it. I was so young.
Do you know what a microwave is? Americans just cook with microwaves.
I can cook things in the U.S. Like and then they wanted me to like, because I was like not making them round, they were like, okay, well then why don't you cut tomatoes? But they wanted me to use this like super sharp knife and just cut the tomatoes in my hand. Oh. And I was like, I'm in the middle of backwoods India. I don't know what my travel insurance is like. If I slip my hand open. So I felt like such a baby, but I was like, I think I like responsibly need to say no to this. And we were supposed to be leaving the next day. So I was like, this is like a whole thing. Yeah. I can't. So I was just like, I'm sorry. I don't think I should do that.
Also, it'd be kind of hard to differentiate the blood from the tomato paste.
And then maybe people, but I loved that experience. Yeah. And I feel like, so I've had that a couple times now. And then like when we went to Costa Rica, I got to cook with them in Costa Rica a couple times too, which was fun. And I had Carla live in my home last year, and she kind of, although I kept being like, teach me something Costa Rican. And she's like, oh, Costa Rican doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have foods that are like Costa Rican. But then when we were in Costa Rica, she's like, this is a traditional Costa Rican thing. I was like, what, girl? Like, what are you telling me? But what it turns out is that she just like, she said that, like, we just would not have been able to recreate it in the States. She's like, I just couldn't have gotten these beans, this rice, that kind of meat. Like, she's like, it just would not. And there's a specific sauce. She's like, it just wouldn't have even been the same. It wasn't even worth it. But anyway, if I ever were to, like, have sort of a hook, I feel like it'd be fun to, like, talk about, like, visiting countries and learning to cook, and then just talk, like, but it wouldn't be, like, a cookbook. It would be more about, like, the experiences I have with the women in the kitchen.
What would be the title of that?
Boy, I've never thought about it. I'd want it to be terribly clever. So,
like something
Cooking
with
with Jenna.
Yeah.
And other people.
Cooking and other people.
Cooking around the world with Jenna.
Like, I don't know, something with like hot pot and no conversation. That's a kind
That's the thing. Hot pot's good.
Yeah. Like, but you can't speak their language, so it has to be something with like
Yeah.
like
Conversation.
you can't talk. You can't communicate. I was wanting to ask, what was it like getting new siblings?
Yeah. So then, okay, we're back to my life. When I was
Yeah, sorry. We're
glad.
trying to change it up, and
No.
to what we usually do too.
Love it. Because I prepared. It was sort of weird. We, like, the first time we met them, we all went and played soccer together, and it was in Ames. And Pete came and he brought the three, my stepbrothers, and we came and we had a soccer game that it was like our family versus their family, and so that was kind of fun. And my grandpa, Pete's dad, CH, lived in Ballston Spa, New York, and Ballston Spa has all these spas, which are like springs, and they all have different flavors, and they all taste different, and some of them are awful. You've had some of them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sulfur water.
The sulfur, there's one that literally, as you walk up to it, it smells like rotten eggs. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna drink this? Are you kidding me? But it doesn't taste as bad as it smells. But
I could agree with that.
There's one called the Old Iron Spring that was kind of the classic, and it was iron, and it kind of tasted like iron. I don't know how to explain it, but so Pete's dad would drink this regularly, like it was considered very healthy, and so the first time we met them, they must have just gone to visit CH because they had a bottle of Old Iron Spring water and they filled our water bottles with it. And so then we, instead of drinking, like, we were thinking it's normal water, and it was like,
so they
what?
pranked you guys.
They pranked us the first time we ever met them. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, so that's what I remember. I remember feeling like excited at the wedding. I remember feeling like, oh, I've got more brothers. I remember like telling people, and I'm gonna have 5 brothers, and like, or maybe 6. I think maybe by then my half siblings might have been born. I can't remember exactly what year. I think Connor was born in the late 90s, so I would have had 6 brothers. And then the year after that, I got a half sister too. So I remembered being like, oh, it's a lot of brothers, it's fun. But they would go back to California, and so then we would only see them in the summertime for like a month each summer. So I don't know. It was more about getting a new stepdad, because like the brothers didn't like live with us right away. So then the bigger change was that, we became like my mom and my biological brothers and Pete, and then the others were off in California, and they'd come in the summers. I think I had it easy being the only girl because I always had my own room. So because obviously, like, appropriately, but then when the boys would come in the summers, there'd be 5 boys in the house, and it's chaotic to all of a sudden have 3 more children, and they're just equally children, but they're in your house, and it's your toys, but they're their toys because they're like, it's just kind of, so it's just kind of, so I would often just like, if I needed to, I could escape into my room. But like my brothers didn't have that privilege. I'm like, it's every man for himself. I'm gonna go in my room and like take a breather, which isn't like super normal thing for me to do, but I think in the chaos of it. And I think we didn't always get along growing up. Like I think, like Nate's used to being the oldest in his family. Ben's used to be the oldest in his family. Ben wasn't saved. I mean, we've talked about this. He and I, like, we did not get along. And Ben was mean. I mean, I think he would be okay with me saying that, like, and like Nate was mean. Like, I think we just, so I remember there was a time that like my mom and Pete went out on like a date because they're like, married, and they left the 6 of us home, and they said like we came home just in time. Like you had drawn battle lines and it was about to go down because like
oh my goodness,
like Nate would be all riled up, and then me and Jake would be like, and then like Ben's all riled up and Zach's all with Ben, and then John's like, hey guys, can we just get along?
So you're saying the battle line was John?
No, it was John was like
John
gonna
was about
support
to
his
get ran
brothers if he
over.
had to pick, but he
Yeah.
didn't like it. And I kind of was the same, like, you know,
Okay.
we don't have to fight about this or whatever. So it was tense, I think, at times, because it was just like hard for all of them. Like, and I'm not blaming them either,
Oh, yeah.
because they're like living with their mom, and then they have to like go visit their dad, and they have weird feelings about their dad, and then there's these other kids there, and it's just
Yeah.
like, that's emotional and hard for a kid. So
Yeah.
I'm not blaming, but
Mhm.
it was a little bit like, eventually, after a number of years, like, we got forbade from ever playing Capture the Flag again, because it was just like, you guys only ever fight about this. Like, we played a lot of Capture the Flag growing up, like me and my neighbor kids and stuff. We'd play a lot. Like, we'd either play it just at our house, or we'd go over to our school and play it. But then when my stepbrothers would come, like, there was a point where we were out on a playground, and I was like, I'm always the rules person. I'm like, we gotta talk about the rules, because if we don't talk about the rules ahead of time, like, we will fight. And then Ben's like, let's just go. This is dumb. Like, we just let's just play. Come on. Like, we don't have to talk about the rules. And then we've got to fight. And then they were like, you guys can't play Capture the Flag anymore. So it was a little rough.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be hard for you to bond with them since they only come for a month.
Yeah.
You know,
And like, John, I think he said this in his podcast, but he started to come longer, because he was like, John was much easier to get along with. And I think he got saved. I mean, like, he was pursuing the Lord, so it helped.
Yeah.
But I've talked to Ben about that. Like, there's some different things that we got in fights, and he's like, man, I just feel bad about the person I was. And I'm like, yeah, but I was a Christian. Like, you at least have an excuse.
Yeah.
Like, you at least have an excuse. I was just being really immature. Yeah. But
It is hard to get new siblings. When I got a stepbrother, that was hard. I feel like maybe your parents took it slower with like introducing you guys, but mine, it was like, we showed up one day and like, here's this kid, he's your brother now, and like, you have to live with him, and you have to accept him. And it was like, well,
what?
Yeah.
But and you had to live with them, so
Yeah.
that makes a difference, because we only had to live with them like 2 to 4 weeks out of the year. Versus like, oh, he's just in the house now.
Yeah, he's just here forever all the time.
Yeah, that would be different for sure.
Well, that's interesting. Blending families is really, really difficult.
Yeah,
it's like, it can be a blessing, because the Lord, gives you new family, and He renews things and new relationships that you like. You now have Jessica as a sister because you got Ben as a brother.
Yeah, John. John as a brother.
Oh, I'm sorry, John as a brother.
And from like the moment my parents got married, I was like, I already really liked Jessica, and was like, hey, if you married John, you could be my sister.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, from the time that we were like 9 years old.
You like planned that.
I was like gunning for that for years. But what it turned out, actually, that when it actually happened, it was really hard for me, because by that time, like, Jessica was a close friend, and then John had moved to Cedar Rapids, and we were very close. And so I felt like I was losing my 2 best friends. We're becoming each other's best friends, and I was just being left out in the cold. And Matt and I had already like dated and broke up by then, and so I was still like grieving my own like breakup and like my future and all that. And so then it was actually really, like, their wedding was really hard for me.
Yeah.
And then I felt like shame, like I'm the worst friend ever
Oh.
and the worst sister ever. You know, I had to work through
Yeah.
that.
Oh. Well, I hear though that the couples that break up and get back together are like the best marriages.
I know.
At least that's what
really
somebody on the
happy.
podcast says.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody says that.
So how did you meet Matt?
Okay, so I've been coming to New Life since I was, a kid, grew up here, and then graduated high school, and I was planning I really wanted to go to either ISU or Drake. And so I was like, I'm going to, go. And I had lived in Ames, as a little girl, and so I like really like idolized like the college lifestyle. Like I was like, well, not the drinking, but like I wanted to live in a dorm and have friends and go to class. And I was such a student, I like I was just I loved school. I was so looking forward to all that. And so then at the time, but I didn't really know what I wanted to study. And so I was kind of wishy-washy on that. So then at the time, like, that's when our church had like started the 24 for the core, and we started to we planted a church. It was the core church. And but it was like, it met Saturday nights, and then we would still come to New Life on Sunday mornings. And so, but then that's when Kurt had his chronic fatigue hit. And so then they stopped doing that. But basically, I was like graduating high school, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then in the end, I was like, well, if I get this scholarship to Drake, I will go to Drake. And if I don't, I'll go to Kirkwood, and which will be really humbling for me, because I was like this academic straight A student. I was in my school, we called like the kids in all the AP classes, we called us the Smarty Party. And it wasn't like this like offensive thing. It was just like, oh, they're in the Smarty Party. And so like I was in the Smarty Party and I was like gonna go to like some great college or whatever. And then I decided to go to Kirkwood, and I got a lot of looks on that, like really. And so that was hard for me to like take, because I think I had put some of my identity in my like success in school. But I decided to stay and go to Kirkwood and be part of the 24 for the Corps. And so I did that and went to Kirkwood for 2 years. And so that's when I got to know Matt. And so I was actually like a senior in high school, I think, when Matt started coming to New Life. And it was kind of a big moment, because in the youth group, it had been like all these girls and like my brother Jake and Matt Reinert. And I wasn't about to marry Matt Reinert, and I wasn't about to marry my own brother. And like, marrying Matt Reinert would have felt like marrying my own brother.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of like worried. We were like, there are going to have to be some men that come along. So then all of a sudden, like a whole bunch of guys started coming, because they started the Corps at Mount Mercy. And we were all like, oh, there's chances here, like opportunity. And so I did like, I don't really.
Did you not have any crushes in high school or anything?
I never had a crush that was like on a Christian guy that I thought I would ever be able to marry. Like I didn't know any like Christians. I had kind of a crush on a Christian guy that was like who lived in another town. So it would have been like kind of another state. Like it would have been a big. And so that was the guy that I kind of met through like we used to do like the high school leadership training conferences, and we used to do Faith Walkers conferences. So I kind of knew this guy like growing up, and like I think it was just like this is unrealistic. Neither of us really would want to like move or anything. And so I never like tried to see if that would have gone anywhere really. And so yeah, I really kind of was like no prospects, you know, but I just love God and I want to stay at New Life and I just want to see what happens. And so then it was my senior year. I don't remember like seeing him at church, but it was the senior year we used to go to Faith Walkers, which was that big conference that the Great Commission churches held in between like Christmas and New Year's. And so it was like 4 or 5 days of sermons and singing and like talking and stuff. And Matt came to Faith Walkers. And so we would go, like New Life would meet together over the lunch times and talk through like what are we learning and stuff. And there was a time where, so I had seen Matt and I knew him as he's the guy named Matt who looks like the Matt from Des Moines. That's like how I knew him, because there was also a Matt from Des Moines and they had like the same haircut. So it was like the new Matt that looks like the other Matt that we like know. And so we were in a group together because they just divided by birthdays. And so I have a distinct memory of I'm sitting to the right of Kurt and Matt is sitting to the left of Kurt, and we're in this like circle talking about what we're learning. And like he kind of caught my eye. I was like, okay, this guy's kind of cute. And like it seems like he's really maybe a Christian. He's not just coming along to Faith Walkers because that's what the people are doing. Like it seems like he might love Jesus, but like, does he love Jesus enough? You know, I was like, I don't know, like if he loves Jesus as much as I love Jesus. So he kind of caught my attention. And then when we got back from that Faith Walkers, we did, Ed Levtinsky hosted like it was called the outreach class. And he hosted a class where you like memorize this like method for sharing the gospel, but it's like long and big. It's like this big, like it's like an hour-long presentation kind of on like the gospel, and you memorize every single verse and all that stuff. So I joined that class, and so did Matt and a couple others. But I remembered being like, oh, this guy's like really doing this. Like he's memorizing these verses and he like cares and he's passionate about sharing the gospel. I think he's really a Christian, and I think he's really like committed to serving the Lord. Okay, he's got my attention. So I remembered, but I was in high school, and so he's like, she's a minor, you know, like I don't think he noticed me at all. Which is appropriate. But then because he's 4 years older than me. So he was a senior in college and I was a senior in high school. So then when I graduated, I joined the 24 for the Corps, so did he. And that's when we started doing ministry together. And he like worked for the Corps for a while. And so then that's when we like began to like notice each other. And then he asked me out my sophomore year of college, and we dated for like 2 months or something like that. But the way we talked was like we were engaged. It was very like we went from like we're dating to like we're pretty much engaged like super fast. So then when he like had his like early life crisis and broke up with me, it was really devastating. And I had like been interested in him for so long that I felt like God teased me. I felt like God was like, oh, here's the thing you've been asking for and praying about. Oh, never mind. And I was like, whoa, like I'm so upset. Yeah. And so it was a really good time in my faith because I had a chance to like really look through like, well, what do I think, how do I think prayer works? And your dad recommended a book to me that I loved. It was A Call to Spiritual Reformation by N.D.E. Carson. And that book, like just the first, I think it was just the first couple chapters, like changed my perspective on prayer so thoroughly. And I think I've always known like how to, some things about prayer. I know God's not a vending machine. I know this and that. But I felt like really understanding like, okay, if you want God to answer your prayers, you need to be praying his will. And if you want to be praying his will, you need to pray like the Bible. And so I had a moment where I was really struggling, and I like the radio played, like the guy was the radio DJ, whatever. He shared the verse that says like the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. And I like audibly said in my car, yeah, right. And then I was like, whoa, I have a problem. Like I can tell that I'm so upset. Like I know I have a problem. So that's when I talked to Kurt. He gave me that book, and then I read the book, and it talked about like the will of God. And so then for like, I think it was a month, or it might have been 40 days, I was like, well, then I'm literally not going to pray anything unless it's verbatim scripture. And so I spent a month like, okay, if I want to pray something about this person or that, like this person's sick, like what would I pray for them? That's a verse, you know, not just like, oh, that they'd get better, but like what's a verse or an example of Christ? And so I did that for a month, and it was a huge helpful thing in my faith walk. I think it just helped me learn like, wow, am I praying what God would want me to pray, you know? And so that was really good. And then I like, there's some other things I learned during that time just about like my relationship with God, and it was just really healthy growth time, even though it was really difficult. And then Matt was going through his own thing. So it was actually like almost 3 years in between when he asked me out. Yeah. When he asked me out the first time, and then we broke up, and then when he asked me out again.
My goodness, that would be that.
It was a long,
that's
a long
too long
time. Yeah, it was long, and I think by year 2 and 3, like 2 1/4, I was starting to kind of pick up that like I think maybe he's still interested, because I was struggled too with, I'd never dated anyone but Matt. I still have. I've never dated anyone but Matt, and I wasn't really sure what was okay or not, but I kind of was like, am I sinning by still being interested when he broke up with me? Because I was like, I'm not sure if he broke up with me because it didn't seem like he really wanted to, but he just like had so much going on in his own faith walk. It was a really difficult time in his faith walk. It was very pivotal for him. So he needed to be a single man working through that. And so I was like, but does that mean he's moving on? Like, am I wrong for not moving on? Am I like disobeying God? And I kind of like, I think I just probably needed someone to tell me no. No, it's fine. Like, I wasn't acting in sin. I wasn't like flirting with him or like something that would make him uncomfortable. I was just like grappling with all of that. So then I kind of saw it coming a little bit for various reasons. Like, okay, I think maybe he's going to ask me out again.
And so this whole time, like during that break, you weren't trying to be like, well, I'm just going to find another husband. Like, someone else I can marry.
No. I mean, like, I wasn't waiting for Matt specifically.
Yeah.
But I did get some other men interested, but I just wasn't interested back. Or like had reasons why I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. Or like, I want to see this in your life before. And then there was one kind of toward the end that I was like, honestly, I think I'm still into Matt. Yeah. And I don't think it'd be fair to this guy if I even tried. You know, I was like, and by that point, that was kind of the point where I was like, I'm pretty sure like this feels like a gamble in my life, because I wanted to be married so bad. And I like was one of
passed up other guys.
I had been one of the first of my friends to start dating, but then they all got married in the meantime. And I was like, I'm being left behind. And I don't know. It's like when you're young, it's easier to look back and be like, oh, it all worked out. But when you're like, when it hasn't worked out yet, it's scary. When you have these big desires and dreams and you just you don't know yet how they're going to get fulfilled or if they're going to get fulfilled. And so I feel like I have a lot more compassion on myself now, looking back. But it was good. So then, I felt like, I lost my train of thought again. But
well, you saw that he was going to ask you.
I got the vibe that he was going to ask me. So I wasn't like waiting for Matt specifically, because I struggled with, is that even okay if I do that? I don't feel like I should do that, but I felt like he was still my first choice. So when he asked me out again, I was so happy.
Was there a little bit of anger in there? I feel like I would have been happy and upset.
No, I don't think so.
You would have been happy and upset.
About time. No, because I knew he would have, I think he beat himself up enough about it.
Yeah.
Like, I could tell that's not what he wanted.
Yeah.
That's not how he wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And I think I benefited a lot. So the first time he asked me out, I was only 19 when we dated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was 22 and I'd had a little more life. I had like made a singlehood bucket list. So I did, there were some things I did. Like I went to Europe twice in that time. I like went and did I went to a movie by myself and I was so proud of that. Like,
That's a big thing. A lot of
people do that and love it. And I'm like, that for me was like so scary. I'm such a social person.
Yeah.
What movie was it?
I don't remember.
It was to get snacks.
Oh, I did.
I would get
Yeah,
lots of snacks.
I got popcorn and pop.
Oh, I should do that now. Like
You
fall
could.
asleep in the movie.
Oh, I don't sleep through movies.
I do. That's my like best naps.
That's funny. Yeah, so like there was like a whole list of things like, am I brave enough to like go to a movie by myself? Am I brave enough to like do this or do that or different things? And so I did some of those things. And so I felt glad that I had lived some more life before and I'm very glad that he worked through the things he worked through because he could have worked through those things with us married, but it would have been more painful for me and for him.
Yeah.
Like I think it was just, I'm really grateful to God that got done before we were.
Well, and that he was strong enough to make that hard decision
Yeah.
to protect both of you guys.
Yeah. And then when we got married, I felt like, I mean, it's easy to say this because it's my own wedding. I'm so biased. But I felt like my wedding was a heckin' party. Like, everyone was so glad they finally got married. Like, everyone was so happy at our wedding. I'm sure they're happy at every wedding. But
but like you guys.
I remembered feeling like mine's special. Because everyone was, like, so relieved we got married.
Yeah.
We're so relieved we got married. We're so happy about it. We still look at each other. We've been married 11 years, and we still look at each other sometimes and say, we got married. We did it. And we're so glad. So it worked out.
That's exciting. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely like relate with the idea that a breakup doesn't have to be an entirely bad thing. Like, I never would have broken up with Elena. Like, she broke up with me twice. I never would have broken up with her, but that's probably like one of the reasons I needed her to break up with me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I learned a lot from that. Of like, oh, maybe I am over depending on this woman loving me to fulfill my deepest needs.
Yeah. All of our struggles teach us good things. Isn't that sad? But it's good.
I would just say you get over that when you get married. You'll just find out.
Real fast.
Breakups would be, I'm glad I didn't have to, that would be too hard for me.
It was very hard.
It would be too hard for me, and I would be angry. And,
yeah. And I mean, it was hard. Like, Matt was still in my life group. Like, and he was like he was around all the time. I still.
Like, you guys are mature, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
Like,
There was definitely a point in time where I was like contemplating, like, this is like after we'd broken up and like before we'd gotten back together for the final time, and I was like, should I just leave town?
oh my gosh, Joseph, you're so dramatic. Leave town?
No, I could see that. Like, it's just painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
painful.
you would just run away from the church?
Nah, I mean, just go live somewhere else. It's not running away.
I'm glad it didn't come to that.
Yeah. But I understand, like, the fear of, like, am I going to run into this person at the store? Like, they could be anywhere, you know? Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, how will I react? And it's just hard.
That's sad.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
feel like I'm really thankful. I know not every story is the same, but I'm really thankful because I really feel like Matt and I suit each other very well.
Yeah. You guys definitely do.
There's like, I feel like there's a weird thing about matchmaking where one person can like another person, and there's something subconscious. I feel like there's something subconscious that happens where the other person starts liking them as well, and I don't know. To me, it's too suspicious that
Anybody could like the person that they like.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, like, someone will say, like, you know, they asked me out, and then we found out that we both have liked each other for a long time or something like that. Like, maybe this is just confirmation bias, but I feel like that happens too much. I'm too suspicious.
I don't know. I feel like that was part of why it was so hard for me is, like, as a single woman, as I was like, well, I wasn't allowed to date in school, which I don't think I'm glad. Like, I felt like my parents said I can't do this, but I'm also making this choice. Because I think I had a moment, like I said, I was saved since I was very young, but I had a moment in middle school where I remember, and it wasn't my proudest moment, but I kind of like Pete was like asking me, have you had your God time today, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of just said like, Pete, I probably didn't say it the most respectfully, but I think it was a really healthy thing. But I said like, you have to stop asking me. Like, if this is going to be my faith, you can't make this a chore that I'm doing. Like, you have to leave me alone and let me have my faith and figure it out for myself. And he did. And he respected that. And I was so glad because I feel like I know he's like trying to teach me and train me. And I'm so thankful. Like, I really think that like my, I think my mom and Pete, you know, like were married in some ways, like, cause now they have been divorced. But I think in some ways that marriage was, gave me and Pete each other. Like he didn't have sibling, like he didn't have kids at the time that were following Jesus, but I was, and I like needed him as a guide, and it was great. But I think I did need I needed the space of like, hey, like you've been guiding me, I want to do it now, and he let me do it, and so I feel like that was a big moment for me.
As far as getting stepfathers, Pete's
yeah, he's great. He's one. So great. So then I don't know where I was going with that either. I feel like he believes in my train of thought.
Well, we were talking about Matt. How you met Matt?
Your faith.
Gosh,
I don't know. Anyways, it's good conversation.
Okay, well there you go. I don't remember where I was going with that at all. Yeah.
Well, I don't know where to go from there either.
Oh no, I've killed it.
No, you didn't.
It's okay. People are listening to the podcast on 2 times speed.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
So
this is
all
a really
these awkward
short
pauses.
So you and Matt got married. Your wedding was the best wedding.
It was the best one.
Yeah, the best one that had happened. It wasn't.
All the weddings are great.
Well,
I loved your wedding.
Yeah.
My kids still talk about it,
okay,
and they were so young. Your COVID one.
My COVID one,
Your COVID one where we went and honked for like, I mean, we honked for like 20 minutes straight. My kids were like on cloud nine.
Well,
they were like, we're honking. They were so happy.
A few weeks after that, some parents were like, every time their kids heard honking, they like would associate that with a wedding or like my wedding.
Yeah.
But
like chapel bells.
Well,
so
whenever people tell me that, and they're like, I loved your wedding, and Katie had recently said that, oh, and you were so beautiful. And I was like, I think you're thinking about Pauline. Like, she's the other girl that comes to our church. She was like, no, yours during COVID.
Yes.
And I'm just like, wedding. I don't understand how. But a lot of people have said
that.
And
I think we hadn't, like, because of the timing of it, a lot of us hadn't seen each other. So we were, like, waving from our cars. And it was, like, so special. And we just, like, honked and honked and honked.
What
and,
a fun dystopian time.
Yes, it was weird. Such a weird time. That horrible year.
It was a very pleasant,
wedding.
It was a very pleasant surprise to come outside and all of my friends are in their cars honking at our wedding.
That was fun. I loved your wedding. Okay, so I didn't mean to brag about my wedding, but I loved my wedding. It was
yes,
so
I bet your wedding was the best, though.
It was a good party. I think everyone was so relieved that we got married because
we were all nervous.
We were
What's
such a
gonna
mess. And like we had been together, and then we broke up, and then all these other people got married, and we were their friends, and so we were in so many weddings as like. He was a groomsman and I was a bridesmaid, and they had to figure out how to make us not walk together because, you know, it'd be horribly heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because neither of us were like, okay. So it was like all these weddings. And then we started dating again in August of like 2013, and then the next month, Matt and Andrea got married, and we walked together as like bridesmaid and groom. They paired us together, and that's how people like. There were people at that wedding that were like, "Are you dating?"
You guys were dating.
We were dating. We had started dating like a few weeks before their wedding, but we hadn't like spread it because part of what happened with the first dating was that like Matt panicked because
all the expectations.
Yeah, so much expectations, and we were one of the. Like, we weren't, like, the first, but we were one of the earlier ones to actually start dating. And so after our, like, breakup, the church got, like, an email. Pete sent a big email and was like, you guys got to leave new couples. Give them some space.
Yeah.
You've placed expectations way too high, and it's, like, a lot of pressure. And, like, so that's part of, that wasn't all, but that was a piece of what was so painful for Matt.
Yeah.
So when we started dating again, he was like, I want to keep it kind of a secret. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable. I feel like we're lying. And so we agreed if someone asked us directly, we'd answer, but we wouldn't, like... announce it.
Yeah.
But then at Matt and Andrea's wedding, we like walked arm in arm, and so then I had people coming up to me like, "You're dating." And I was like, "Yeah, we are." I'm so excited. And then we got married like the next April.
Oh, I feel the excitement hearing it. Like, oh.
It was so fun. Yeah.
If I were there back then, I definitely would be one of the nosy ones.
Yeah.
To be like, "Are you guys dating? What's going on?"
Yes, indeed. It was. Yeah. It was probably pretty obvious. We were pretty stoked. I was, at least. Matt, I think, he was excited but freaked out at the same time. And then it went, but it was good.
Yeah. So how old is Charlotte again?
Charlotte is 9.
Okay.
Going on 10.
I'm trying to think if I like joined the church around the time you had gotten pregnant with her, but I think maybe it was around Millie.
maybe. Millie was born in February of 2017. She is 8.
Oh yeah, okay. Then it was definitely around Millie. You guys like had your kids pretty quick, so you've been
Super
married.
close, yeah.
Yeah.
They're close together. Charlotte is 4.5 years older than Soren.
And did you guys plan that?
We did, yeah. We wanted them close together, and God just allowed that. He blessed that, which we appreciate. So when we got married in April of 2014, and by that time, Matt's mom had already kind of been like diagnosed with. I don't know. I didn't follow along about how the diagnoses went, but I think it was pulmonary fibrosis, which is basically like her lungs were hardening, and so she was not like her lungs weren't breathing in and out as much. They were like getting harder and harder, and so she was starting to like not get enough oxygen and wasn't like as healthy, and so we like talked about. And Matt, when we got married, he was 27, and I was 23, and he's like, "Well, I don't want to be an old dad, and I want to have a number of kids, you know, and like, so I don't want to wait a long time to have children. Like my mom is maybe looking less healthy. I don't want to be old." And so we were only married like 6 months before I got pregnant with Charlotte. And then we had Charlotte, and then we were praying for Matt's mom. Like we want her to be able to like meet the grandkids and like know that like meet her grandchild. And it just kept on like, she kept living, and it was amazing. So the week that Charlotte was born, she had her first like hole in her lung. And then she ended up the next spring having her lung transplant, but she would have been dead by Charlotte's first birthday. Oh my gosh. If she hadn't had the lung transplant. But
so this is a different person's lung?
Yeah.
She, like,
Julie has
is
one.
Is it both of them? Or?
One lung. One lung is hers, and the one is a transplant.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah. So then we were like, wow, God, thank you. Like she's kind of, and we just kept praying, well, God, I pray she knows the next grandkid. Well, I pray she knows the next one. I pray that they'd be old enough to have memories of her. And she just has kept living. So it's been amazing. Like God has answered that prayer.
Yeah.
Gotta start praying about high school, graduating high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Graduate high school.
Yeah. So, but that was, yeah. So she had the lung transplant, and that was amazing. So, but that's not why we had our kids close together though. We just had them close together because we wanted them to be like, we kind of just wanted to like pop them out, have them. I wanted them to be interested in the same things at the same time a little bit. And so I didn't want to have like, oh, we're trying to go camping and we have like a 15-year-old and a 2-year-old, which some people like love that. And there's different pros and cons to like, okay, well, our kids weren't helpful with their siblings, like when they were young, you know, it's like Charlotte was only 4.5 when Soren was born. Millie was 3. Ransom wasn't even 2. Yeah. So it was like very tight. And so I don't know. It has made some things really difficult, like when they were really young, but it got easier a lot faster than I thought.
So, are we? What time?
7:45.
Is that? Keep going.
We can keep going, yeah.
Okay. I have more questions.
Yeah, that's fine.
So with having like you guys getting married, you know, having the like difficult breakup, getting married, and then having kids so quickly, a lot of people would advise that like you get to know each other, you know, are married for at least a year or 2 or whatever, and usually in that time you discover stuff about each other. Do you feel like you've done that, or have you had that kind of later on down the line? I don't know. Where you
I don't think it'd been a problem. We had been close friends. I mean, since I was 18.
Yeah.
So we didn't get married till we'd known each other for 5 years really well. Yeah. Like we were doing ministry together with our friends. We weren't dating the whole time, but like we were you know, like really in a group of friends. He was like living at the men's house, the Mantagon, and I was at the girls' house, the Fortress, and so we would do a lot together. We did morning prayer, so I'd go to his house every morning like and pray with them, and so I knew him and I knew his heart very well. And so I didn't feel the need to like
do all that.
Yeah, I think like I was I would have maybe been like, oh, let's like travel more or do more of that before we have a baby, but I was fine with respecting like he's like I'm already 27 and I want to have babies before I'm a lot older, and I was like, I'm all for that. Like I'll follow you on that. Yeah. And then God like blessed that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you said that you guys are very intentional with your parenting. Was that way from the start?
I would say so, yeah. I feel like we're intentional people. And I'd like grown up, I feel like I've grown up in the church, so I've heard a lot of like teachings on parenting. I think like I was in a blended family, so there was a lot of discussion about parenting and things growing up. And so I think like I for sure have felt like I was sort of already like taught a lot about parenting before I became a parent. So I don't know.
Did you have any anxieties about getting married and having kids coming from divorced family to a blended family?
Yeah, I would say a little bit. I think I felt like I've seen the statistics, you know, and it's not just that my parents are divorced. My grandparents are divorced and my great-grandparents are divorced.
Oh, wow.
Like, this is a generational problem.
Yeah.
My great-grandma Mildred, who Millie is named after, was a wonderful Christian woman, but her husband, I don't know if she always was, but her husband, my grandpa's dad, ran away from the family and disappeared, and they didn't have some Google, they couldn't find him. Like, so he just like disappeared when my grandpa was only like a year old or two.
Wow.
And then was just gone. And they only found out just a few years ago, like what had happened to him, that he like ended up settling and having another family.
Wow, he started another family.
I guess he did, yeah. But like they didn't know any of that because he just disappeared.
Yeah.
So my great grandma had been like basically abandoned. And then my grandpa.
Did she ever remarry or?
She did, yeah. Yep. And I think that grandpa died, I don't know, when I was maybe 4 or 5. I do have memories of him like sitting in his chair, but I don't remember like interacting with him very much. So her
great grandma, grandma, mom.
Yeah, lots of divorce. So I've felt that like, and I've had like, I remember one time I got super duper triggered. I didn't know that word back then, but like we went to, it was like either, it might have been Josh McDowell. I don't remember which one's the dad and which one's the son of the McDowells. But he's like this famous Christian guy, and he went on. I don't remember even why we watched this. We were at some sort of a high school. It was like some sort of a high school leadership training with the Great Commission churches, or like a teen conference or something. But for some reason, we watched this thing with Josh McDowell, and he was just going off about all the statistics about like fatherlessness and the likelihood of like divorcing if your parents are divorced too. And I like was so mad at him. To this day, I don't really like him. I felt like, wow, that's like the most discouraging thing I've ever heard. And it doesn't take into account like that Christ changes you.
Yeah.
And like, maybe he did at some point, and I was just so triggered. I didn't like see it, but I was like, Christ changed me. And I think I feel like I don't feel the fear. Like now that I've been married a while and understand marriage, like as well as you can, I don't know if you can like, I don't know. I think I feel like that fear has dissipated because I recognize like Matt and I are Christians pursuing Christ, and like we're new creations. Yeah. So like, yeah, in some ways, like what your background and family of origin looks like influences you, but not more than Jesus. Right. And so I have hope, and I don't feel like it doesn't scare me. Like I kind of was afraid I was afraid of being scared. Yeah. Like I was afraid that I'd like sabotage my marriage by being so afraid or like so suspicious of Matt or something. And it's just not been like much of a problem. Yeah. And I obviously do renew and work through things that like come up and stuff, but generally I haven't like I did when I was before I got married. I was worried. Yeah. But now I don't. Yeah. I have hope.
Yes, you do. And you don't have to, like, I feel like statistics can be scary, but people forget that they don't have to be a part of the statistic. Like, that's not, you are so different than, you know, whoever they're talking about. It doesn't have to be true about you.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently I hate statistics. It's like keeps coming out.
Honestly, like, I hate statistics too. Yeah. I feel like they're so overused as like,
it's like scare tactics almost.
Yeah.
Which isn't loving.
I feel like anytime someone has to put together some kind of presentation and they're not like really going to put in the effort to actually think about the issue, they just start collecting these statistics. Yeah. And to me, it feels like a cop out. And like, I don't think statistics are actually that impressive.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it also limits like the freedom of the person. Like you feel like you almost don't have a choice anymore. Yeah. Because now you have to fit into this statistic that is about you.
Right. That's silly.
And then they get more statistics. Yeah. For their lame presentations.
I feel like it can kind of like it can help when someone says something and you're like, well, why are you just pulling that out of thin air? You know, I don't know. I feel like there's like a place, I guess, but yeah, I feel like if it's anything not done in love.
Well, and you can be talking about a specific person's heart, like talking about a group, but like you forget that those numbers are people. Like you're talking about people.
Yeah, if people caveated more, I'd be like, it's probably fine. If you're caveating, I'm like much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like to me, the why something happens is much more interesting than like that it is happening. So it's like understanding why people get divorced is a lot more interesting than whatever number of people get divorced, whatever.
Well, they say like, I don't know, 50% of marriages and like 50% Christian marriages as well.
Yeah.
But then like, okay, but a lot of people claim to be Christians. They're not. Right. So that doesn't say anything about me and my marriage.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you can let it go.
So what event or time period in your life, you've talked about several things in your life that do you feel have taught you the most about God, and have grown your faith the most?
Do we have time for the one I haven't talked about yet?
We always have time.
We always have time.
That's a big question.
It is. No, it's cool. I feel like I've just talked about it so much that everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, you're Jenna goes again about 2020," but I'll just do it anyway. We had a very difficult year. 2019 was maybe more difficult emotionally because at the beginning of 2019, my brother and his wife got divorced, and it just like rippled through my extended family and just like ripped everything to shreds. It was just this horrible mess, so confusing. Everyone in my family was, well, not everyone, most of my family attended New Life, and so then like the mess bled into our church life. So then it just, I feel like how to say this, but like that song on Christ the Solid Rock I Stand, all other ground is sinking sand. It felt like that way because my family was falling to pieces. The church, like it was hard to be at church because my family was there while they were falling to pieces. We financially were really struggling, very, very struggling. Matt was in grad school, so he was busy. I was solo parenting a lot. And our finances were kind of a mess because we were paying for grad school out of pocket, but then also Matt was working like a job that just, I don't know, we had 4 kids. We had Soren, which is wonderful. But like we had our 4th kid, he's still in grad school. Then COVID happened. So like society is gone. Like, I don't know.
Everything literally was taken.
And during that year we moved 4 times because in January we'd been living with my mom and Pete, and like things started going poorly in our family. So we're like, we don't feel like, we see that this is going badly. We don't feel like this is a healthy place to live. And then we found out the day before, we were supposed to move in an apartment. We found out the day before that we couldn't because we didn't have we were considered low income, like our monthly income, but Matt had this like retirement account from having worked at the hospital all those years. So they're like, oh, you have way too much money. And we're like, but we don't have access to that money. Yeah. And it was like a low income apartment or whatever. And so we ended up not being able to. So I called Kurt and Brenda the night before we were moving and was like, can we move into your house? Yeah. And they had availability at that time. And they had offered at one point, like, our house is an option. So they were like, yep, move in. So then the next day in January, we moved into Kurt and Brenda's house. So we were living there when COVID happened, which I think is a huge grace of God, because I would have been in this tiny apartment with all my kids just by myself for all that time. But instead I was like at this house with Kurt and Brenda. And so socially it was wonderful because we got to know them. And I feel like I had said, like, that I had struggled to think they even liked me when I was younger. And so I knew that was lie-based, but this gave us a chance to really become friends. Like, I feel like I became friends with Brenda in a huge way during that time, and Kurt. And I was very pregnant. I had a lot of pain during that pregnancy. And so Kurt would like help me carry Ransom up and down the stairs, like, because we were downstairs, but his bedroom was upstairs, and Matt was often at work or at clinicals because he worked a lot of nights and weekends during that time. It was a really hard time. I'm like rambling about it. So we then we moved into our house. Soren was born in April. We moved into our house 2 weeks later in May. And then in August, the derecho dropped a tree into our living room. And so we had to move out of our house again in August. And then we moved back in December. So we moved 4 times. Matt was in grad school the whole time. Like, I'm just trying to keep my head on. And so I feel like when COVID happened, I was like, I don't think we could have had a social life that year. And so I was sort of thankful. I was like, we're not just like getting FOMO and missing out on everything, because everything's canceled. Yeah. Which is good because we just are drowning. Like, and so it was really hard and stressful, and it was like stressful for like month after month after month after month. Like, and but I feel like the big thing that happened during that time, there were a few different things, but it was the support of the family of God, like the support of the church, that like got us through. I mean, I had so many people reaching out to me, like, how are you doing, over the family stuff. And I had, the church stepped in a lot of ways. I had the pastors on speed dial in a big way. Like, I had so many meetings with Kurt in tears over like what's going on. And like Matt and I had some issues going on in our marriage, some misunderstandings that we worked through that year. So I feel like we've come out the other side of that, like way more like stable, mature, like being able to handle, like, we just don't feel shook by as much because we're like, it's not 2020.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Like, I don't know. But the support of the church, I feel like two big things stand out. One of them is that after the derecho, the trees in our house, I've never had a tree fall into my house before. I'm feeling very uninformed about what you do next, you know? Mm-hmm. And it just feels like the just complete outpouring. Like, I felt like so inadequate to handle this mess. And like, we got our kids out. Ben and Amy were with us. Ben and Amy had come over to our house for lunch because at that time, Ben didn't work Mondays and Matt didn't work Mondays. We're like, let's have you over for lunch. So they were at our house when it happened. So it was a bummer for them because they were traumatized, you know, by the tree. I mean, we were in the room. We were sitting in the dining room attached to the living room when the tree came in. We weren't in the basement yet. It happened right at the beginning of the storm. And so just this happened. It was so scary. But then they were with us like the whole time. And we were praying together and we were just supported. And they stayed a while, even though they were kind of wondering about their own house. Like, they were like, how can we help you? It was just really good. And then Joelle was like, come stay at our house. So we stayed overnight at Joelle's house with like 23 other people. Like, it was like so many people at Joelle's house overnight, Jeff and Joelle's. And then my parents, my in-laws live in Manchester, Matt's parents, and they, so the derecho did not hit there. And so we took our kids up there. And so people talk about the derecho, like the camping after the derecho, but we didn't camp. We had hot showers and we had food, we had refrigerator, we had AC at their house. So we could go every night to that. But then the next morning I remember being like, I have no idea what we're going to do. And we're like driving there and I'm like so stressed. I'm looking around town, like at the devastation. I'm like, I have no idea what we're going to do. I have no idea if we can contact people because the phones are shoddy. And we pulled up into our driveway and Scott McMaster was in our driveway. And I was like, hey, like, what are you doing here? You know, he's like, I just thought you probably need help. And I was like, oh my gosh, we do. And then that was just the first person in this huge line. It was like people showed up and like so many people showed up and then people brought food. I was like, I didn't think about feeding people. Like, I didn't have to think about very much because like everything. And then like Lane, we'd never met Lane. I met Lane at my house when he was supporting the wall was like listing out because the tree was pushing on the wall. And so he went to like neighbors' houses that had down trees and created like these poles to hold up the house. So then the trees were holding up the house and the house was holding up the tree. And then like, it was this whole thing, but like, it was just person after person. And then this group of people from Des Moines came and they were like, hey, we've come, we've brought lunch for people. We're going to help. And I'd never met them before. And like my plant, do you remember this? I asked you, I had a special plant. His name's Benny. And he'd been my plant since high school because I realized in high school, I had a Rack, Shack, and Benny, or like, you know, from the Bible. I had a Rack, who was like my gerbil, and then I had a hamster called Shack, and I was going to have a Benny, and then I was like, I can't have a pet, so I got a plant instead. So I'd had this plant for years, and it was kind of like my thing. I have this plant. But then Benny like held the house up. He was on top of the thing when the tree fell onto Benny, and it was like Benny was like saving our lives. And so I was like,
there was like that armoire thing.
It was on the armoire,
but
Benny was on the armoire.
But I don't think it was actually touching the pot.
Yeah, let Jenna believe what you
it was Benny. Anyway, so then Benny disappeared, and I was like, I don't know. Did Katie take Benny because she knows I love him? Did you take Benny? Like, because you were there? I don't remember. I think we'd talked about it. And no, I couldn't figure out what happened to him. And like a month later, this gal from Des Moines was like, somehow she got my number and texted me and was like, I have your plant. And I was like, what?
Oh my goodness.
And she had taken Benny, specifically out of all my plants, she had taken Benny and repotted him and had been keeping him alive and had waited until she felt like I probably wasn't as stressed about my house. And then was like, I'll get your plant back to you. And she did. And so I was like, what? Someone rescued Benny. Like, God provides for everything.
Yeah.
You know?
He so took care of you.
So it's like every need. And like things like the insurance wouldn't pay for, the church was like, we have the Acts fund and they would help with. And like, I thought it would like just be really difficult emotionally, but we actually ended up making a lot of money off the derecho. Like our house, we had just moved into this house and it needed all these projects and it needed new carpet and it needed all this stuff. And we're like, well, it could be years before we can do this. And then it was all like redone and super nice. And Ed Gund came and we were the first people whose house he focused on. He was like, you're a family. I'm going to focus on your house. And we let him sleep on the floor in the girls' room. He like slept on the floor in their room for like 2 months. But it was kind of the symbiotic thing where he was like, you're letting me sleep here for free. I don't have to stay at a hotel. You're saving me so much money. And so then he did all this extra stuff for us that wasn't even paid for by insurance. And like, it was just thing after thing after thing that we're like, God, you are just like showing us that we're in your hands, even though all other ground is sinking sand. We can't rely on our finances. We can't rely on society. We can't rely on our family in some ways. We can't rely on the church in some ways. Like all these things that we would go to for like support.
All possible idols.
Yeah, like Matt's job was changing because he was quitting his old job and getting it's just all these possible idols, and it was just like nope. So we just, and I think it was really just like one of the best times to have gone through. It was so hard, but so good in the end. And then like, and then the other thing is that year, like I don't even remember. I have the card, but a group of like 12 or 13 of our friends pooled money, and they gave us a card with just this wad of cash in it, and they said, go on vacation, we're watching your kids, you guys have to get out of town, because we had been so stressed. And I was like, I can't even talk about crying. And I'm like, okay, I still can't talk about that without crying. It's the most loving thing anyone's ever done for us, because like that to me is the most refreshing thing ever, is like getting out of town. I love traveling, and we don't do it a lot, but we try like as much as we can. But I love getting out of town. I just find it so refreshing, even if it's just for a weekend, to like go somewhere else, have some fun, do some experiences, and then come home. And so we went up to Stillwater and had like the most amazing like 3 days just away from all the chaos and the pressure. And we took Soren with us because he was just a baby, and he was like our little buddy, and like we just had the most wonderful vacation, and it was all paid for because we couldn't have afforded it at that time. We couldn't get away, you know. And then they like babysat our other kids even though they were little and like needy and had still wearing diapers or like whatever. Like it was just the most kind thing anyone's ever done for us, and it was just the right moment and just the right need. And so just remembering that like God like uses his people to bless us, and like we try and do that too, like to others, like just see their practical needs and try and be there for them and anticipate, you know, what needs can be. So that was like the most beautiful time. And I remember like I was running. It was, there's so many stories I could tell, but but I'm going to bookend this. There's so many stories I could tell, but I remember at one point I had been like, I mean, I'm single parenting in a big way. Like, I mean, I'm not, Matt is around, but he's just really busy, and like all this stuff's going on. We're like all these things that I already listed. And then Ed Gunn kind of looked at me one time when I was like talking to him about life, and he kind of was like, hey, Jenna, some point you're going to need to stop running. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's right. Like I was living in this, like everything's like, I was living in crisis. Everything's stressful. Everything's like hard. Everything's like next level. Like, okay, like I have to just like depend on God, but not to like thrive, just to barely survive. Like we are almost drowning all the time. And like, he was like, you're going to have to stop running. And it was like, just that's that one sentence. It's like the only thing Ed Gunn's ever said to me that was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe we talked about other things, but it changed my life because he was right. I was like not in a healthy, like spinning my wheels, place. And so I was like, he's right. And I'm going to have to slow it down. Like things are coming together. We're moving back into our house. Like, I need to like stop running or like I'm going to burn out completely. And so I did. And then this is the bookend. Literally, that's what my book's about. That's part of what's going on with Sable is like in my book, like I was talking about, my main character is like a widow and her husband's died. And like, she's got all this stuff going on. She's trying to like keep things afloat and raise her daughter and all this stuff. And so then something comes and smacks her in the face and she realizes I've been running like, and I need to slow down and stop running. And so that's kind of like the thrust of my book. Like the very underlying core concept is like, she needs to like enjoy and live life again.
Well, when you've been in survival for so long,
you
just forget what anything else is like. And you forget that you've been living like you're in boiling water.
Yeah, I did forget. And so having that, I'm so thankful that Ed said that one little side comment, like, hey, just so you know, I was like, wow, that is exactly what I needed to hear. And like really significantly helped my life and probably helped my kids. Cause I was like, so stressed and I'm trying to parent all these young kids and they were so close in age. So yeah, but just depending on God through that time, like has given me a lot more, like I can just a little more balance when things come our way and shock us. I think we still like can grieve and, process, but I think we're a little more like, God gets us through things that are so hard. And he also like believes we're capable of that. Like he really thought we were capable.
With him.
Yeah, he really thought we were capable of a lot. I guess that's flattering. Thanks God. But like also, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if we agree about what we're capable of surviving.
I feel like when you hold those things with such tight in your hands, your family, your finances, when God takes that away from you and you realize like, oh, I didn't need it.
Yeah.
And those were all just blessings from God. Then it's easier to hold those things with an open hand. So then when trauma does come, when hard times do come, then it's not as like devastating because that's been taken away before and you realize like, oh, I had Jesus.
You made it through.
I made it through. I was okay. It was hard, but I was okay.
Yep. Yeah. God does that.
Yeah, he does.
Teaches us that his bigness and
in hard ways when you're like stubborn. You know, like, I'm not calling you stubborn, but I'm saying like for stubborn people, like he does big things to get your attention.
Get your attention.
Well, that seems like a great place to end.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank
I know
you
you
so
said
much,
you
Jenna, for
go ahead.
Everything. Just coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Sharing everything. Sorry,
Thanks for giving me the chance. I really wanted to. I really was excited to do it and to talk.
Well, was it everything you were expecting?
I mean, I could keep going for like 4 hours. I'm having so much fun.
We should have you back. But yeah, thank you for sharing that story. That was really, really encouraging. Just like reliving that. Not exactly how you lived it, but I do have some memories of that time and hearing it from you, and you know that now that God has brought you on the other side of that. That is amazing to hear, and it's super encouraging. So maybe you've told it lots of times, but I think it's encouraging every single time.
Thank you.
I just want to say one thing I've noticed about you too, like over the years of knowing you, not super closely, but I really feel like you're such a strong person, because I understand there are hard things that happen in your life, but you are always so loving. You're so encouraging to the people around you, and you really do seem to be there for your friends.
Thank you.
And I've noticed that about you, and it's really encouraging, especially thinking back to that time and how I knew that your family and your life was in turmoil, but I still felt like you were probably drowning, but you were still loving people. And I see that in you now, being just a force, powerful, strong, encouraging, and fun woman.
Thank you. That's so kind. I appreciate that. I feel like God has given us much to give, and that's kind of where we kind of have to keep going back to, even in the really hard times. Like if we're going back to God, then I feel like we do still have more, like our cup's still overflowing.
To whom much is given, much is expected. Is that what
yeah. And I think about the verse, I'm going to butcher this, but there's one that's like, God has comforted you in this circumstance so you can comfort others in any circumstance. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I really tried to take that seriously, that I don't have to have had that exact same trial that they've had. Yeah. Like I have seen God's comfort in huge ways. And I feel like I've done like an insufficient job. Like there's so many stories that, like through that time of like things God did that I could I just feel like he deserves more credit for like all the little ways that he like sustained us through
and you'll
those
get
years.
to share those with people on personal levels when they come.
But I think that I feel like, well, God has comforted us in big ways, so we have a lot to offer.
There's the Bible verse that the Lord is close to Lord is close to those who are in mourning. He's close to their heart. And it just it's so clear that he was so close to you guys during that time.
Was. The Lord is near.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. I really love that. I love that Bible verse. Anyways.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, thank you.
Good. Thank you guys
for listening. Yeah. Have a great life, people.